What is cracking, YouTube? It has been way too long. We've been knee deep in this draft content, y'all, over on Bleacher Report. If you have not noticed, it's been 3 days a week over there at 6 p.m. covering the New York Giants. We've been going through draft prospects. We went through the whole entire combine. We've been preparing and gearing up for free agency. And I just got off doing a show over there about what free agent quarterbacks we should possibly target, especially with all this talk with Aaron Rodgers being thrown around. And I figure, man, it's been overdue. It's time for me to pull up the YouTube, see what's cracking with the family, man. Big salute to all of y'all. Appreciate y'all just popping in, pulling up on short notice. I was sitting here, I was like, man, I got a free hour, maybe a good 2 hours. Let's pull up, go talk some New York Giants football. So the topic surrounding social media, and shout out to Waterfly, I see you in the building. He's with a straight up bold no to Aaron Rodgers. But I will say this, y'all. Right now, the New York Giants are in a particular situation at the quarterback position where they don't have that many options. So let me open up the chat here one time. But Waterfly, I'd love to know what your most safest option is for the New York Giants at the quarterback position. How you felt about Matthew Stafford and all that stuff, because I know I haven't talked to you guys in a long time. And as the Matthew Stafford, trade talks were bubbling up with the New York Giants, hearing about them making this move for Matthew Stafford, I was okay with it. Now, I didn't want to part ways with the number 3 overall selection, which would be, quite frankly, pretty foolish because no veteran quarterback has ever been traded for a top 5 pick, not in the history of football that I've been watching. And as of late, I mean, the latest one that we could compare to that was the comp pick that they traded for Aaron Rodgers actually to get to the Jets. So that's why I wanted to bring up all of this talk about Aaron Rodgers and also, speak on some of these other quarterbacks that are out there as well. I mean, we got a ton of catching up to do, y'all. I could literally probably come up here and talk for about 5 hours because we have done pretty much no prospect or draft content over here on YouTube. And we've gone through so many players. Like I got my whiteboard over here with so many names and so many prospects that I've been diving into, which we'll save it for another day. But I do plan on becoming a little bit more frequent over here on YouTube during the offseason just to kind of catch y'all up on some of the opinions that I have and just kind of see where you guys are at with it as well. I already see it's a rack of y'all. I'm getting those giant overreaction, nostalgic vibes right now. And it's been, since the season came to an end, since we've done one of these shows. So I'm definitely anxious to hear how you guys feel about the quarterback position. We'll do a little bit of talking about Shedeur Sanders, a little bit of talking about Cam Ward and some of the other quarterbacks as well. But I did want to focus today on more speaking on the free agent quarterbacks that are out there and the limited options that the New York Giants have. Now, Dan Graziano came out. I want to say this was today that he said this. He said that about Aaron Rodgers, he's the guy you hire if you want to lose your job. The entire Jets building got fired. He's not lying about that. That is actually factual right there, and you cannot argue that. And there's no amount of emotion that you could put into a take that could disagree with what Dan Graziano is saying right there, because trying to do things the Aaron Rodgers way led the New York Jets astray, and their season went down the tubes. They literally only won, 2 more games than the New York Giants? They just won 5 games this season. But I do see a few things and a few reasons why this particular situation with Aaron Rodgers coming to the New York Giants at this particular time could make some sense. And I'm here today to break that down to y'all. I do want to say what's up to a couple of people in the chat real quick, and then we'll get off into this conversation. Really no cap or no restraint on how long we're going to be talking today. But I did want to, keep it constricted to the quarterback position. If you got draft questions, throw them out there. We're going to do this on the fly. That's how we normally do over here. But big shout out to Waterfly in the building. Big shout out to Sigma Surge in the building. I ain't seen y'all in so long. It's crazy. Cookie Monster's in the building. That's my dog. He said, let's pull this one up on the screen. This is a good one. He says, in regards to Aaron Rodgers, he might ruin the culture, don't need him running the show, and it's extremely late for him to listen to a coach. I don't disagree with a lot of those stances there, and I think that there is a bit of humility that's going to have to kick in for Aaron Rodgers, wherever the next destination is for Aaron Rodgers, but I don't disagree with that too much. He does say he's stuck in his ways. That is a possibility. I will say this. Aaron Rodgers is the kind of guy that the media will not bother him, but he might bother the media. So, it's kind of like we're getting rid of quarterbacks that didn't know how to deal with the media, but you bring in a guy like Aaron Rodgers, And, he's going to be a guy that's going to get underneath the skin of some of these beat reporters and some of the media and some of the fans, obviously. But big shout out to Cookie Monster. I see Jameson is in the building. What's going on, fam? Seven is in the building. I see you, my dog. Vegas XD is in the building. He says, Cam, please. We don't need to waste bread on Rodgers. So this is the thing. If you're going to spend money on a quarterback in free agency, I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to cost you that much money, regardless of the situation. And this is why I was asking y'all how y'all felt about this right off the bat. You cannot go into the draft at the end of April without signing a quarterback to the active New York Giants roster. Right now, we have 0 quarterbacks under contract. All you have is Tommy DeVito, who is an exclusive rights free agent, and Joe Schoen has, talked about it, and he is committed to bringing Tommy DeVito back. But that's the only quarterback that's on the roster right now. Even if you get your hand-picked selection to be able to go out there and draft Cam Ward at the 3rd overall pick, there's no ensuring that, for one, because if Cleveland decides, hey, we need a quarterback, they can take Cam Ward. If the Tennessee Titans want to get a quarterback, they can take Cam Ward. They could trade that pick to a team that is not the New York Giants that could jump us and then go up there and take Cam Ward. And if you do not address quarterback in the free agent period, what's going to end up happening here is a lot of these names that are at the top of these lists are going to start to sign with other teams. Free agency opens up on March 10th, which is, just a couple of days away. We're here at March 4th right now. So if you allow that circumstance to happen where you wheel your way into the draft and you don't have any quarterbacks that are a viable option to start week 1 for the Giants, and the 2 top quarterbacks go off the board, well, you're going to be in a serious shit of a situation. And I don't want to see the New York Giants get there. At bare minimum, go out there and sign me somebody in free agency, whether it be a Jameis Winston, a Marcus Mariota. I don't care who you got to sign for cheap, but at least make it be a guy that you can at least bring up and present week 1 as the starter, as the insurance policy, in case you are unable to get your quarterback in this draft. Because at the end of the day, I do not want to see, these 2 quarterbacks go off the board and then the Giants sitting there in the 2nd round twiddling their thumbs like, do we reach on a quarterback here? Which would not be a good idea. So likely they would probably reach for a quarterback, a project type of, flyer in the 3rd or in the 4th round. And you're looking at guys like Jalen Milroe, Will Howard, Kyle McCord. Who are some of these other quarterbacks? Tyler Shuck, who's getting a ton of publicity now as of late. Quinn Ewers, who not on my radar. Seth Hennigan out of Memphis. All these other guys. Riley Leonard, shout out to the beard one time, but that's a no for me. Who else did I not mention? Dylan Gabriel. This quarterback class, they were right about this class. It is not good. I think that it is front ran by 2 good quarterbacks in Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward being my quarterback 1. So I'm with the whole Cam Ward plan. Don't get me wrong. But you cannot let this free agency period open up and end without going out there and getting a quarterback. That is a absolute no for me. Shout out to G-Man 2011. He says Rodgers and Dable just will not mix. Imagine the sidelines. Oh, it will be a lot of side-eyeing because I feel like, Brian Dable is not the kind of guy that's going to, buck up to an Aaron Rodgers the same way he would with a Daniel Jones or Tyrod Taylor. I'm more thinking Daniel Jones, like throwing clipboards at a guy like Aaron Rodgers. I don't see it happening. But this is a 1-year ditch type of plan. Brian Dable's on the hot seat. Joe Schoen is on the hot seat. They have to go out here and win games. And if they don't go out here and win games, sayonara, they're going to be fired going into 2026. Absolutely. Shout out to 40 Luck. I see my dog B-Rog is in the building. Kansan is in the building. Big Los is in the building. Kareem Yee, I think I already got him. He's in the building. Dean in the building. Who else we got that I might have missed? Pete Cho is in the building. He says, we need a bridge quarterback. I really don't care who it is, but we cannot let whoever we draft start on week 1. Whether it's Cam or Shedeur or whoever, they need to learn under a veteran quarterback. Now, that is my language right there. And that is exactly what it is. You cannot afford to have your franchise quarterback get rolled out there in week 1, similar to an Anthony Richardson, who, by the Colts doing that, they're stunting his development. And they're not allowing him to be groomed the proper way as a quarterback should by sitting and resting. Things that we've seen with guys like Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Jordan Love. Countless quarterbacks did not have to be thrown out to the wolves in week 1. And, oh, yeah, the latest Super Bowl winner as well. Jalen Hurts is another guy that did not start in his first year as well. So, Pete, I'm right there with you on that. I see Word is in the building. What's going on, Word? Hope all is well. Darnell D is in the building. Shout out Darnell D. Let's get this super chat right here from Get Right or Get Left. Big shout out to Get Right or Get Left with the $4.99 super chat. He says, for the church building fund. Peace to my guy, Authentic. Marquez Hardison. Salute. So we got new names up in the building, man. Big shout out to the gang, man. I appreciate you, man. Appreciate you supporting the channel. It's been a minute. It's definitely been a minute. I'm excited to be back up here talking New York Giants football with y'all again. And we got another super chat from the homie B-Rog one time, dropping in with the $20 super chat. Big salute to B-Rog one time. He says, I think that the Titans will pick Hunter, so this will be a non-issue. We will have Ward or Shedeur Sanders at number 3. AR is way, way too much baggage. Speaking on Aaron Rodgers. Adams got cut today. Yes, he did. Plus, he doesn't want to mentor a young quarterback. I like Carr as the option. I'd like to know where you get the information that he doesn't want to mentor a young quarterback, because everywhere he's been in the past couple of years, all the backup quarterbacks that he has served over have spoken about his tutelage and about his veteranship and the way that he helped them with their game. Zach Wilson being the latest one. You can go back to the Hard Knocks episodes that were in the summer of 2023. And you can see how confident and comfortable Zach Wilson felt around him. And my doppelganger, Jordan Love, came out and he said, like, oh, my God, I learned so much from Aaron Rodgers. So I don't know where that part's coming from. Devontae Adams, we're going to talk about that today, too. You know, the kind of package deal that could possibly come with a Aaron Rodgers and a Devontae Adams. But I don't know about this situation that we will have Ward and Shedeur Sanders at number 3. If I had to bet my money on it today, I think one of them will be there. And honestly, I think it's going to be Shedeur Sanders. And if you've been paying attention to some of these experts and their mock drafts, they have been talking about the New York Giants in particular and other teams passing on Shedeur Sanders. A lot of people do not have a first-round grade evaluation on Shedeur Sanders right now. Others have Shedeur Sanders as quarterback 1. I'm somewhere in the middle of it. I think Shedeur Sanders possesses a good skill set that you could build around. He could possibly be a franchise quarterback. I think he could come into this league and have some success. But at the end of the day, I do view a gap between him and Cam Ward. And I don't know if you guys got to see the clip that I posted up here on YouTube where I got to chop it up with Daniel Jeremiah on his yearly communications call that he did with NFL.com. I got the invite for that. So I got to sit in with a lot of the beat reporters and ask questions pretty much at will during this conference. And he talked about it. He was the first one I heard that said it, that there is a significant gap between Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward and the way that they are viewed coming into this draft. So we shall see. B-Rog, I don't foresee both quarterbacks being there at 3, but I would not rule it out. And in that scenario, it is the perfect type of situation for the New York Giants to go out there and get their franchise quarterback. So I'm all for that. Definitely all for that. Let me see. Shout out to Gregory. Gregory says Rodgers will be the best quarterback the Giants have had since Eli Manning, as long as he can stay healthy. And that is a thing. You definitely got to stay healthy for sure. Shout out JDJ in the building, says Aaron Rodgers and Dable would clash. Imagine Dable throwing that iPad and having to hear about it from AR on McAfee's show the next day. I don't think that Aaron Rodgers is going to be doing the Pat McAfee show this year. I think that was a detriment to him. And the Jets came out and said that if he were retained, that part of his, whole media campaign would have to be completely nipped in the bud and he would have to stop doing that. I like that kind of coverage. Y'all know that. Like, a lot of Giants content creators didn't like the idea of the Giants being on Hard Knocks. And I've preached it for, years that I wanted the New York Giants on Hard Knocks. And we finally got it. And it was really ugly, but it was also really entertaining. And it was also, a great, 50 millimeter lens look into the way that the New York Giants operate, which we definitely got the gist that they don't operate like a functional franchise. So we'll see how that goes. I will say this. Certain people command a certain kind of respect. I would never expect Brian Dable to be throwing a clipboard at Aaron Rodgers. I just think he commands and demands a certain kind of respect that wouldn't fly. But I do respect that opinion. Shout out to Jesser in the building. I see Jeffrey Harrell is in the building. Gang is in the building, man. I appreciate all of y'all pulling up, short notice like this, rocking out. I was like, man, it could be 2 or 2 million people in there today. I don't care. We're going to talk some Giants ball, and we're going to put this on record because I feel like a lot of Giants fans here and the people that, that surround our community, the Authentic and the Beard community, have not really heard a lot of my takes or the Beard's takes as far as going into this draft and how we feel about some of these quarterbacks. So we're going to try to make that a regular thing. I had to get accustomed to the new Bleacher Report schedule that they rolled out for me, which is 3 days a week and 2 days back to back. So you can imagine the kind of preparation that goes into that. Shout out to my dog, Peter, one time, man. Always talking ball with us over there on Twitter, in the Twitter spaces. Coming in with the $5 super chat. He said, Thenick, in your opinion, how much of a gap is there between Sanders and the 3rd and 4th quarterbacks in this class? So I think that Sanders is much closer to a Jackson Dart or even if you look at it from different skill sets, like a Jalen Milroe or Kyle McCord, I really think Kyle McCord does a lot of things similar to Shedeur Sanders and might be even a better quarterback from the pocket. But I think that Shedeur gives you a little bit more off-script stuff. That's why I would have Shedeur at QB2. When I did my hierarchy on Bleacher Report, I had Cam Ward at QB1, Shedeur at QB2, Kyle McCord and Jackson Dart at like a 3A, 3B type of situation. And then I think I had Jalen Milroe at 5, and I forget who I had at 4. I know I didn't have Dylan Gabriel. Maybe I just skipped out on the 5th quarterback and I just put Jalen Milroe there. So for me, though, I think there is a pretty decent gap between Shedeur and Cam. But when you go from Shedeur to Jackson Dart, I think that they're much closer, especially with the skill set that Jackson Dart brings with his legs and that kind of power type of running game. I think he brings a different skill set than a guy like Shedeur Sanders does. But I think that Shedeur is probably the smarter quarterback. But Jackson Dart, from a tools kind of, what kind of tools you got in the bag, I think Jackson Dart might have more tools in the bag. Shedeur Sanders might play with a little bit more anticipation, but I think that Jackson Dart plays with a little bit more moxie and just has a better skill set in some regards. But Shedeur Sanders is the much more safer quarterback. But when you get to the NFL, sometimes you got to ignore safe and you got to go with a reckless gunslinger that's going to go out there and win you games. And I'm still undecided if Jackson Dart or Shedeur Sanders is going to give you that advantage one over the other. We shall see. But shout out to the homie Peter, man, always talking ball. I was listening in to you guys today before I went live on Bleacher Report. K-Mac is in the building. He says, Rodgers Ward quarterback room is a lot better than an empty one. And that's how I view it. We're going to get off into a bag here in a second. We're already 20 minutes in, but I know it's been a while. I definitely wanted to tap in with you guys and, just kind of give you guys a little bit of an update. Pete Cho says, he's talking about Tyler Shuck, and he just puts a question mark. So I think Shuck, I did not have him in my top 5, but here's the thing. This is how I feel about Shuck in a nutshell. Tyler Shuck is a big body quarterback, right? He has that stature. He checks those boxes in a way that Daniel Jones did. And I'm bringing up Daniel Jones for a reason. Shuck has a big arm. He can fit the ball in the tight windows. You saw his performance at the Senior Bowl. It was looking like the best quarterback out there until on his last throw, he ends up throwing a pick 6. And those are the things that showed up on his tape all too often for me. His mistakes look a lot like Daniel Jones. When he is, I can remember one game that I was looking at. He was rolling to the right, and he has an opening on a 4th down play to be able to get to the sticks and reach the ball out. It's about 4th and 3, and he just runs out of bounds like a yard short. He has plays where he'll buy time in the pocket, roll out, hold the ball all the way to the last minute, and then make an error throw that makes absolutely no sense. So for me, I do think Tyler Shuck could come into the league and be successful. But the mistakes look all too much like the last quarterback that we drafted. So I'm like, I'd probably stay away from Tyler Shuck unless it was like a 5th-round flyer and we didn't get our quarterback and, somewhere on day 1 or day 2. But he's not high on my radar right now. I think there are a lot of things that, we should be very cautionary about with Tyler Shuck. And the injuries is another thing that to me looks a lot like Daniel Jones. This is a guy that is 26 years old, I believe. And he played college ball for like 5 or 6 years. He had 3 major injuries that ended his season short 3 straight years in a row. And you guys, who does that sound like? That sounds like Daniel Jones. So I'm just, I'm not too invested in the Tyler Shuck talk just yet, but he does have a decent arm. I think he has pretty good velocity. Deep ball is pretty good. And him and Ja'Cory Brooks did a lot of damage over there at Louisville. I'm more of a fan of the wide receiver he was thrown to with Ja'Cory Brooks than I am of him as a quarterback. So we'll see how that pans out. Shout out to Sarah in the building, dropping gems already. Should have drafted a quarterback last year. And listen, had we have drafted a quarterback last year, we wouldn't be here right now, right? We wouldn't have a ultra wide receiver 1 on the roster. That's the con of it, I guess. But at the same time, we would have had our franchise quarterback in the building. And in my eyes, you guys knew this during the time, I would have pulled the trigger on Michael Penix with the 6th overall selection. But the Giants decided to go, in the direction of supporting Daniel Jones. And then after just 10 games, they abandoned that plan and ended up having to release Daniel Jones. So it goes to show you that the Giants don't have a true long-term plan. And towards the back half of the season, I talked about this a lot over here about being proactive on the quarterback situation. I can even remember at the beginning of the season, I reposted this clip on Twitter It's of me and Pat Leonard when Pat Leonard featured me on his podcast at the beginning of the year. And we talked about Daniel Jones and what it would take to keep Daniel Jones in blue going into 2025. And I said virtually nothing. I was like, even if Daniel Jones went out there and had a Patrick Mahomes-like season with 50 touchdowns, I would still consider moving on. But most importantly, what I said during that interview was that the Giants have to be proactive on the quarterback position right now. We're talking about entering week 1 of 2024. Understanding and knowing what you are going to do when it does not work out with Daniel Jones, right? Nobody plans a trip and doesn't think about worst case scenario, right? You don't plan a trip with your last couple of dollars and say, hey, we're going to put this 75 in the tank and screw it. If it doesn't get us there and back, it's whatever. You cannot approach an NFL football team like that. And all too often, Joe Schoen has operated very reactive rather than being proactive. And that's been one of my big issues with him. JDJ says, also, if you bring in Rodgers, I don't think we'd be able to smoothly usher in Ward later in the year if we want to develop him, kind of like the Kurt Warner-Eli dynamic. I think Rodgers would throw a fit. I don't think he would. Listen, the only situation where you would need to bring in the rookie quarterback during the regular season would be if you are eliminated from playoff contention, because you're not bringing in Aaron Rodgers in here to lose games. You're bringing him here to try to win games. So I don't want to see the rookie in the regular season. If I have it my way, the Giants are going to go out there with Aaron Rodgers, if they were to sign him, and draft a quarterback, Shador or Cam Ward or whatever it may be, and they're going to go win games. And if you win 8, 9 games, whatever it may be with Aaron Rodgers, I don't mind seeing that rookie sit on the bench for an entire season and then assess things going into 2026 and figure out a plan from there. I always thought that with the Kurt Warner-Eli Manning situation, they threw Eli to the Wolves too early. I want to say the New York Giants were sitting at 3-3 when they threw Eli to the Wolves, and then Eli went out there and proceeded to lose 7 straight games. So, in my opinion, that's not a good plan. Let me see. We got Love God in the building. Is moving up to number 1 for 2 second-round picks worth it? With so many holes on this team, giving up draft capital scares me. Giving up draft capital scares me too. But at the end of the day, think about it, right? What have we drafted with the number 2 overall selection? This team is not good at drafting. Last year, it was Tyler Nubin. The year before that, let me see, the 2023 draft was JMS, I believe, was our second-round pick. And then the year before that was Wan'Dale Robinson. So we don't have great luck at the number 2 overall, or not number 2 overall, but our second-round pick. We don't have a lot of luck there in the first place. So I don't hold that much value on a couple of second-round picks. But at the end of the day, if it takes 2 second-round picks for me to get my pick on a franchise quarterback, and that's the only option, I'm down to take it. Right now, the Giants are just in a really poor place, and they don't have a lot of options. I'm going to go into some of the options that I think that they could go into. But at the end of the day, every one of the options I'm going to present today has some kind of a red flag or an asterisk that comes along with it. And obviously, Aaron Rodgers is one of them. Bluegrass Pickers in the building. What's going on, my dog? He said Travis Hunter is fine by me. Could be the Ohtani of the NFL. That's very true. He really could be. And I think he possesses the skill set on both sides of the ball to be able to do that. He's a fantastic wide receiver. He can do all kinds of things from the cornerback position. So even if he is a full-time cornerback, you could still bring him in on the offensive side of the ball, prepare a couple of packages for him, maybe give him about 25, 30% of the snaps at maximum, and he could be a weapon on the offensive side of the ball as well. I've experimented with trading back. Like during when the offseason first kicked off on Bleacher Report, one of the things I talked about a lot was trading back and, waiting to see if both quarterbacks were off the board. And if they did come off the board, then trade back, prepare your plan to get your, flyer quarterback at the end of the first round and use your original first round pick on bringing in a guy like, maybe a weapon, maybe a Tedero McMillan, or maybe, somebody in the trenches on the defensive side of the ball. A lot of these guys at the combine are rising up draft boards. James Pierce Jr. is one of them. The linebacker out of Alabama as well. There are a lot of guys out there that could contribute to a football team. And I really think that the Giants just got to go out here and bring in playmakers on the offensive side of the ball and bring in dogs on the defensive side of the ball. Address the trenches. Defensive tackle is so deep in this class, it is absolutely ridiculous. You got guys like Tyleik Williams out there. You got guys like Aeneas Peebles out of Virginia Tech, one of my favorites. Oh, my God. What's my guy? Kenneth Grant out of Michigan. These guys are amazing prospects right now. And if I could pick one of these guys, maybe a Derek Mason out of Oregon, or let me think of some other. There's plenty of defense. Darius Alexander out of Toledo is another guy. There are tons of defensive tackles and edge rushers in this draft as well that you could target in the back half of the first round, second round, and as deep as the third and the fourth round as well. So I definitely like Travis Hunter as a prospect. But I think the Giants are not in a position to rush, and I know that Brian Daboll and Joe Shane might be, but I think that with John Mara signing off on all these moves, he's got to be extremely cautious with what he allows his head coach and his general manager to do, being on a hot seat that they are on right now. Let me see. Bookend Tackle said, what about trying to get Joe Milton from the Patriots to take a shot if we don't draft one? I mean, Joe Milton had his fair share of flaws coming out of college as well. He's a big body, big arm. At the end of the regular season, he made a couple of plays, looked good in that last game. But there's a lot of deficiencies on his tape as well. And what are we considering to trade? Maybe a fourth rounder or something like that when he was drafted in the sixth round? We had our chance to draft him, and I just don't see that being a real option entering this year. Let me see. I'm just scrolling to catch up with y'all here, and then we're going to keep it pushing into this topic here. Gregory says, I feel like Rodgers is just a way to kick the can down the road, waiting on Archie Manning. And that's what we might have to do. At the same time, it's going to be an insurance policy at the quarterback position, because I'm about to go into it here in a second, but you have to bring in somebody during free agency to play that insurance role in case things do not go your way in the draft. You at least have some type of contingency plan that you can fall back on. If you just go into the draft willy-nilly thinking, I'm just going to wait till the quarterback falls to me, and then the top two teams, whoever they may be, even if somebody jumps us, ends up taking these quarterbacks, we're going to be in a pretty shitty situation. So I'm looking to go out here in free agency and solidify our quarterback in free agency, somebody that doesn't cost too much, and we'll get into that, but somebody that from a productivity and from a value standpoint, it makes sense for the New York Giants. So we'll see how that goes. Let me see. I think we got one more. No, we already got the super chats. Okay. So let's get into this, because I want to bring up a couple of things about a couple of quarterbacks here today. And today, on Bleacher Report, we talked about Aaron Rodgers, and we talked about some pros. We talked about some cons, and there are a lot of cons bringing in a guy like Aaron Rodgers. And I also think that a lot of people just get too invested in the person, the character that Aaron Rodgers is, and they go, I don't like that guy, so I don't want him to be the quarterback of my team. And I do understand that. But at the end of the day, for me, I just want to see competent play from the quarterback position, which will then open up things for this offense. And then it'll allow Brian Daboll to have no scapegoats, no excuses after the end of 2025. Because at the end of 2024, Brian Daboll was preaching that if my quarterback can go out there and play good football like what we saw from Drew Lock against the Colts, then we are going to go out there and it's an easy no-brainer for us to be able to win games. And y'all, I'm just tired. I'll keep it real with y'all. Like, we've been in this twilight zone of a circle for so long here. It seems like we've been begging for a quarterback for 4 seasons now as Giants fans. And for me, I just want to be able to go out there on Sundays, root for my team, and not sit here and just expect them to lose every week. I don't mind if we're in what people will call quarterback purgatory, winning 8, 9 games and not allowing ourselves to get up high into the draft like we are this year, because I feel that it is the responsibility of the general manager to go out there by any means necessary, get your quarterback. And that's exactly what Joe Shane and Brandon Beane did when they were in Buffalo. They weren't at the top of the draft when they picked Josh Allen. What was that, 7th overall? They had to move, shake, and trade and do all kinds of different things, jumping through hula hoops and over hurdles to get their franchise quarterback. And they did that in a year where they were just coming off of a playoff berth with Tyrod Taylor, who had just got a contract extension the year before. So for me, no more excuses at all. Go out there and get the quarterback by any means. But at the same time, I need you to field a much better roster than what we have seen the last couple of years. I really want to upload the current roster so you guys can see it as well, because entering free agency right now, our roster it's the worst roster in the NFL, maybe outside of the Las Vegas Raiders. It's literally the worst roster in the NFL. And I just want to see Joe Shane go out here and put out a team and put out a product that represents New York that we can actually have chances to go out there and win some games. And that has not been the case the last couple of seasons. We're looking at a team that has not won over 6 games in 7 of the last 8 seasons. And as Giants fans, we just deserve better than that, y'all. To me, that's just not going to cut it. So let's get off into this Matthew Stafford conversation here real quick, briefly, and then I want to go make another point that I was making on Twitter today about Justin Fields and about Russell Wilson and some of these other quarterbacks. Now, Aaron Rodgers is currently on a contract that is paying him an average annual value of $37.5 million. Over the cap values Aaron Rodgers today, right now, and he's still under contract, but they value him at $31.4 million per year, which, if that's the number it's going to take to bring in Aaron Rodgers, count me out. I think that number's too high. Honestly, if that number is the same number for Russell Wilson, count me out as well. I don't want to pay nearly $40 million a year like we did with Daniel Jones to bring in a quarterback that we know is absolutely not the future of this franchise. Now, his 2025 cap number is $23.5 million. That's what he would be owed if he were to play with the Jets this season. And it's very likely that he is going to be released. In fact, it's almost 100% guaranteed that Aaron Rodgers will be released. But if we could get him in the New York Giants building, which he's already been pretty much in this building operating with the Jets, which is another bonus for us and for Aaron Rodgers, if we could get him in here around that $20 to $23 million range, I'm game for it. He's 42 years old. I do understand that. He's much older at the quarterback position. But there are benefits to this situation. The Giants planned on bringing in a veteran like Matthew Stafford. Shout out to my plug. If he's watching, he knows. He texted me and he said the Giants are out of the bidding war for Matthew Stafford. I tweeted it out a little bit skeptical about it, saying like, this is what I'm hearing. And literally 30 minutes later, the news came out about Matthew Stafford signing an extension with the Rams and the details of the contract not being out there yet. But if you wanted that style of veteran, like a Matthew Stafford, you can't say that a guy like Aaron Rodgers is that far off from that. Now, is Rodgers the next best option? I think he's probably, 2A, 2B when it comes to these options, if you want to go with a veteran. A lot of people's reasoning for not wanting to trade for Matthew Stafford was, we don't want to give up these type of draft assets for a 37-year-old quarterback. I get it. They also said we don't want to pay that kind of money. It was rumored that it was going to be about $50 million a year. They said they didn't want to pay that kind of money for a quarterback that's 37 years old. So the question I would ask is, how much are you willing to pay a quarterback that is 42 years old in Aaron Rodgers, and another quarterback in Russell Wilson, who is 36 years old, just 1 year younger than Matthew Stafford? Now, I think another benefit for Aaron Rodgers is, yes, he can handle the media. That is a fact. You might get the sideshow stuff that a lot of people are not going to like, but he can handle the media. He's not a guy that's going to go up there and get fleeced by the New York Giants beat reporters and stuff like that. He's going to go up there and hold his own, and I appreciate that. Another benefit, this one's a little bit more on the humor side, but number 8 is not being used right now since Daniel Jones was released. So he'll come in and his number will be available for him right off the bat. You wouldn't have to trade assets like you would have to trade for Matthew Stafford. You wouldn't have to trade up to number 1 with the Titans, but you still could, because you're not spending any draft capital to bring in a guy like Aaron Rodgers. I personally think that Aaron Rodgers would make for a great mentor, especially for a guy who I think that his skill set is very similar to Aaron Rodgers, especially in his prime, is a guy like Cam Ward. Now, I'm not sitting up here saying Cam Ward has the same arm talent as an Aaron Rodgers, because I think that is the elites of the elites when you talk about Aaron Rodgers. But I do think that Cam Ward has elite arm talent. I do think that. Now, the other thing is, Aaron Rodgers can still play. A lot of people looked at the beginning of the season, and when the New York Jets started to fall out of playoff contention, people just started to ignore that team. But by the season's end, Aaron Rodgers had 28 touchdowns and 11 interceptions. I'll wait for you to tell me the last quarterback that had a touchdown to interception ratio that was that good, that played for the New York Giants, okay? He also had 3,897 yards. Staying local, same facility, all these things are benefits for both parties. A year removed, a lot of people aren't thinking about this part of it too. He's now a full season removed from the Achilles injury. And look at what the Achilles injury did to a guy like Kirk Cousins. Granted, he was in a new situation, a new scenario with the Atlanta Falcons, but Kirk Cousins went out there, a guy who is not known for throwing interceptions, went out there and threw 16 interceptions this year. And he had just 2 more touchdowns than he had interceptions. And that's no way to be playing starting caliber football in the NFL. But I do give him a little bit of a pass, because if you look at the beginning of the year with the Atlanta Falcons and the way they were operating with Kirk Cousins, who is literally a quarterback known for taking snaps under center, they had to operate with him in the shotgun almost for the whole entire first half of the season because he couldn't move. So I'm looking at Aaron Rodgers coming off that Achilles injury. I expect him to look more like the Aaron Rodgers we saw in the back half of the season than the Aaron Rodgers that we saw in the front half of the season. The other thing is Devontae Adams. You could likely bring in a guy like Devontae Adams on a cheap contract. You know Aaron Rodgers is going to want him there. That's an immediate upgrade to that wide receiver room that only has 3 wide receivers under contract right now. It's Malik Neighbors, Wan'Dale Robinson, and Jalen Hyatt. It's 4, actually, because you got Bryce Ford-Wheaton, who wasn't getting no snaps at wide receiver, but he is a special teams player that is listed as a wide receiver. So now, not only are you getting Aaron Rodgers, the mentor, but you're going to get Devontae Adams, the mentor, as well. Possibly. Let's not act like that's a guarantee. And lastly, Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen are on the hottest of hottest seats. They are not in position, for those of y'all that want to throw a rookie out there week 1 to the Wolves, they are not in position to do that. Imagine you go out there and you throw a rookie to the Wolves and you lose, let's say, 6 of your first 7 games. Those guys are going to get fired mid-season. So for their lifeline, as far as being the head coach and the general manager of the New York Giants, they need a quarterback that can go out there and win them games to try to keep them in the front office of the New York Giants and keep their jobs alive. I'm not sure about the Brian Daboll contract, but I know that Joe Schoen's contract, it's in 2026, it will come to an end. He was on a 5-year deal. So he's almost on his way out. He needs to leave a fantastic impression on John Mara, on Steve Tisch, so that he can remain, trying to finish out the job and the operation that he started. Am I for that? Not necessarily. But at the same time, I don't want to see the New York Giants just go out here and just lose games, right? Because ultimately that's going to get the New York Giants fired, or that's going to get the general manager and the head coach fired for the New York Giants. But also it's going to set us back another year. Now you got to bring in a new general manager, a new head coach. And who's to say that the quarterback that gets drafted possibly this year is their guy? So now you might be in this whole kind of a reboot type of situation anyway. So all that to say, I do think that there are a lot of benefits to bringing in a guy like Aaron Rodgers. The threshold of quarterback play that you are going to get, the arm talent that you are going to get from the quarterback position. I don't think anybody can sit up here and say that Aaron Rodgers' arm is cooked. I didn't see that on the tape that I've seen. And if you've seen it, please support it with some evidence and send me some clips. But that's how I view the entire Aaron Rodgers situation, because what are the other options, right? And I'm going to go over a couple of them, right? But when you talk about bringing in a stopgap or bridge quarterback, a guy who's a veteran that could come in and help groom your rookie quarterback that's going to be drafted this year, who are the other guys? Does Jameis Winston give us a better opportunity to win games and groom a quarterback? Absolutely not. And y'all know I love some Jameis Winston. All the eating the W's and all, I love it. But at the end of the day, he's a turnover-prone quarterback that's not going to win you a lot of games. Sam Darnold, I think, honestly, is the best option from a quarterbacking standpoint. But the money is what scares me away from Sam Darnold, and y'all know how I like to operate. He's got one great season under his belt. It was a great one with the Minnesota Vikings, over 30-some-odd touchdowns, and really, spun it the entire season. But the money is what I think is keeping me away from him. And also, if you're Sam Darnold, are you really going to come back to New York after you just had the best year of your entire career? You literally just revived everything about your NFL career, and you're going to go back to New York? Doubt it. I doubt that happens. You got guys like Russell Wilson who are going to cost a little bit of money as well. There are not that many free agent quarterbacks on the market. You're looking at guys like Andy Dalton. You're looking at guys like Cooper Rush. Those are some of the free agents out there. And Marcus Mariota, who y'all know I'm a supporter of Marcus Mariota. And when he came in for the Washington Commanders this past year, he played some good ball, 2 touchdowns in each of the starts that he played in, which was just 2 games. He had a rushing touchdown as well, no interceptions, took care of the football, and won the Commanders 2 games. A lot of people are going to overlook that. So Marcus Mariota is, in the ballpark of one of my options as well to bring in a free agent quarterback. He's obviously going to be cheap, but at the same time, does he give you the same type of capability to win games like an Aaron Rodgers does? You could make an argument for it at this point in their careers. Marcus Mariota's a lot younger, but I just foresee Aaron Rodgers being at least equal or a better opportunity over Marcus Mariota, pending what kind of money it's going to take to bring in a guy like Aaron Rodgers. I see a couple of super chats came in. Let's get to those, and then we'll keep this conversation pushing in the right direction. Big shout out to Door Gunner one time in a building with the $2 super chat. He says the Giants are hosed. Draft class / free agent quarterback class stinks. And he's not lying. At the top of the draft class, you got a couple of quarterbacks, but really in free agency, outside of Sam Darnold, there aren't many quarterbacks out there. And this It reminds me of the offseason after the 2022 season. When everybody was like, we have no option. Daniel Jones just won a playoff game. We have to sign him, right? Look at the Minnesota Vikings. They went to the playoffs, right? They were like, Sam Darnold, do what you do, man. Test the market. We'll figure it out. They're not going to franchise tag him. That came out today. And I'm not saying that they might not be one of the bidders for, bringing him back on a cheaper deal. But Dorgunner's right about this. And Dorgunner is a Washington Commanders fan, if I'm not mistaken, either. So definitely speaks volumes there. They got their quarterback checked. That's all done. Big shout out to Dorgunner. Big shout out to Five Blizzard one time in the building with the $5 super chat. Says Rodgers, Neighbors, Adams, Wandale, Turbo, Theo, and potentially Travis Hunter. You can't tell me that core can't win 9 games minimum. We have nothing to lose. I agree with you. I do think that core could win 9 games. The dicey part would be is if you're on the clock at 3 and Cam Ward is there, are you going to pick, a guy like Travis Hunter over Cam Ward? I know that it would serve an immediate impact on our roster if you brought in a guy like Travis Hunter, but at the same time, it's something to think about. And realistically, even with all those names without Travis Hunter on that list, that offense right there from a weapon standpoint is a lot better than what we have been dealing with in the last couple of years. So big shout out to Five Blizzard, man. Appreciate you supporting the channel. Chris Peace is in the building. What's going on, dog? Chris Peace says, only if the Giants took a quarterback in 2024. Yeah, that's in hindsight, man. And, even though we spoke about it in real time and a lot of us wanted to draft, Michael Penix or, even guys like Sal and Monty from He's a Giant wanted to draft J.J. McCarthy, which I would have been okay with, even though Michael Penix was my preference. They decided to go in a different direction and, build around Daniel Jones for the, the temporary time being. And that just didn't work, man. But big shout out to Chris Peace. I appreciate you, my dog. Dorgunner coming in with another $2 super chat here. He says, you need a QB with legs behind that line. You do. And if he's not a QB with legs, then you need an extremely decisive quarterback with some weapons on the outside to support that, because then he could get the ball out of his hands quicker. But I do agree with you, Dorgunner. Like, if you don't have a quarterback that can buy time with his legs, like look at what your quarterback did this year in Jaden Daniels. That offensive line doesn't have any names on it, right? Maybe the one guy from that you guys brought over from the Dallas Cowboys. What's my dude's name? Biotis or whatever his name is. That's like the only serviceable lineman that I thought you guys truly had. But Bobby Johnson and Jaden Daniels, that combination, they found a way to make it work. And mostly because of Jaden Daniels, a guy that can buy time, extend plays, extend drives by using his legs to pick up first downs on third down in long type situations. That's the kind of thing that we need over here with the New York Giants. But for the long haul, I think in the short term, you could bring in a veteran quarterback who's not necessarily that mobile, but grooming the guy who's going to be next up in line who can have some of those capabilities. I don't quite look at Cam Ward, the best quarterback in this class, as a guy who's really going to, how can I word this? Like, Cam's not going to do a lot of running around to get yards on the ground. He's going to run around to try to find wide receivers open down the field. But nonetheless, I do think that Cam Ward can be a franchise quarterback. Big shout out to Dorgunner, and he dropped another super chat here, a $5 one here. He says, a desperate coach and a general manager plus a bad quarterback class isn't a good place to be. It's not. And I think a lot of fans right now, because we endured the entire Daniel Jones era for 6 years, people are just so relieved to be out of it that now they don't want to make a mistake with the next quarterback that we bring in. But I think one thing that they're overlooking is most of the opportunities and the options that we have at the quarterback position, they really don't make sense. Big shout out to Dorgunner, though, man. I appreciate you supporting the channel, man. And shout out to all of y'all that are here in the chat, rocking out with us today on this impromptu version of, I don't know if we're going to call this a giant overreaction or what we're going to call this, but definitely rocking out with Authentic and the Beer. We appreciate y'all, man. Definitely appreciate that. So let's get off into this next portion of the discussion. And this is the portion that I really want to talk about. And I see Chris Peace got another super chat. Let's get that before we do that. Chris Peace coming in with the $4.99 super chat here one time, says, speaking of Daniels, how many fumbles did he have? I'm not even sure. You're in a better position right now to look it up. I got a whole show to run here, Chris Peace. Big shout out to Chris Peace in the building, man. I appreciate you, my dog. All right, so let's get to it. His bookend tackle said, take a shot. If they stink, draft again in 2 years. That's very true. That's how you got to approach this stuff, man. And I hate that the New York Giants have not taken a shot in 6 going on 7 years now since Daniel Jones. So it's time. We absolutely have to take a shot in this draft. You cannot leave this draft without at least taking a flyer on one of these day 2, day 3 type of quarterbacks. So I'm right there with bookend on it. Bookend also said that Sanders is good at maneuvering in the pocket, just doesn't have arm talent that Ward does. I agree with you on that. There are times where Shedeur Sanders has just brain lapses, like in the pocket, like just like looking down the field, has enough time to get rid of the ball and just trying to play hero ball and just takes unnecessary sacks. But I do agree that he's a crafty type of athlete. Like a lot of people don't give him the true flowers he deserves for the kind of athlete that he is, the kind of quarterback that can throw on the run. So I do agree with you in that facet as well. All right, so this next portion of the discussion is the part that I've been waiting to get to, y'all. I'm like, and I think a lot of y'all know where I'm going with this when I mentioned Justin Fields. But recently, this past week, Pat Leonard had Darius Slayton on his podcast. And Darius Slayton, you guys know, is set to be a free agent. So everything that he was speaking about was like when I was a Giant type of vibe, right? And like that is behind me. I do expect the New York Giants to move on from Darius Slayton and not give him a new contract this year. And he will be with a different ball club. And I'm sure he expects that too. Now, Pat Leonard asked Darius Slayton, would landing a quarterback like Matthew Stafford have caused you to view what the New York Giants could be differently? Or do you look at this like it played out or it played its course? Darius Slayton said it definitely would have. If you look at Stafford's track record of what he has done for receivers' careers, if you have a chance to play with that guy, you take it because you are probably going to be set up for a career year. That's straight up facts too. Now, this part is the part that truly stood out to me about this entire conversation. Darius Slayton went on to say, specifically for the Giants, whatever direction they choose to go in, they have to full sail into that quarterback. By that, I mean the way that they structure things, the way that they call the offense. Whoever it is has to be poured into, like the Ravens have poured into Lamar Jackson, like the Buffalo Bills have poured into Josh Allen, and like the Kansas City Chiefs have poured into Patrick Mahomes. He continued to say, if you look at the way that the Ravens, he used them, and he said it's the easiest example for him to use. He said, if you look at the way that the Ravens have played football since Lamar Jackson got there, it has been tailored to his skill set. If you would have asked Lamar Jackson to come into the league and play like Peyton Manning, we would not know him to be the quarterback that he is today. That is the reality of any young quarterback that you see succeed in this league. So that prompts me to talk about my next best option at the quarterback position. And this is Justin Fields, in my opinion. You know, I think that guys like Justin Fields and even Marcus Mariota, I think that you could say this about him as well. They have gone through the trenches, have gone through the ringery, and the rag has been wrung out. But I don't think that the rag is wrung out to the point where there's still no water in it. I think that these are two very capable quarterbacks, especially when looking at Justin Fields. And I know a lot of people are like, Justin Fields is a bad quarterback, but I'm here to give you a little bit of reasoning, at least over the last year of football that Justin Fields has played, that he makes a lot of sense for the New York Giants if he were to hit the free agent market. Now, he is set to be a free agent, but there are some rumors that have came out. Even Ian Rappaport said that the Pittsburgh Steelers are expected to bring back Justin Fields over Russell Wilson as the starter. And I think that Mike Tomlin is looking at this situation eerily similar to how I'm looking at it right now. I want to put up a graphic on the screen, and I'll talk in the background as the graphic comes up. But I looked at Justin Fields and his last 17 games, and I posted this graphic today on Twitter. Some people were like, ooh, I'm kind of, you got my ears raised up here. I'm a little bit interested. Other people were almost damn near offended that I was making this kind of a comparison, I guess, by just posting statistics of a quarterback over his last 17 games. Take a look at this. Justin Fields, over his last 17 games, has 3,241 passing yards, 19 passing touchdowns. He's got 826 rushing yards, 8 rushing touchdowns. So we're talking about a quarterback that put up 27 total touchdowns with a completion percentage of 63.64 and a quarterback rating that is just a tick under where you might want it to be, which my threshold is right around 90. That's where Justin Fields stands. Now, he also has just 7 interceptions. So if you're thinking touchdown to interception ratio, he has just 7 interceptions to go with those 19 touchdowns. This is the exact same completion percentage to the T as what Josh Allen had in 2024. This is more rushing yards than every quarterback in the league in 2024, not named Lamar Jackson or Jaden Daniels. This is more passing yards and rushing yards than Jalen Hurts not only had in 2024, but if you want to factor in the last 17 games for Jalen Hurts, including the playoffs or not, it's still more passing yards and more rushing yards than Jalen Hurts put up this year. It's one less passing touchdown than Jalen Hurts had on the season this year. Now, Fields was tied for fourth in rushing touchdowns in 2024, and he only played 6 games. Now, there was a drastic gap between the top 2 guys in the league in Jalen Hurts, who had a ton of rushing touchdowns, along with Josh Allen, and then the fall off was pretty drastic. But now, I say all that to say, let's compare it to what a Super Bowl winning quarterback looks like, and that's Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts in 2024 had 2,903 yards, 18 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 630 rushing yards, 14 rushing touchdowns. You can, put the asterisk next to it if you want, if you feel some kind of way about the tush push. A completion percentage of 68.7 and a quarterback rating of 103.7, which is really good. Jalen Hurts played some really good football this year, and when his team needed him to get them over the hump, he did that. Now, we can't not factor in the weapons and the surroundings. And I'm not only talking about from a personnel standpoint. I'm also speaking on Jalen Hurts and the type of environment that he is around with the Philadelphia Eagles. You got the best general manager in the league. You have, consistency at the head coaching position with Nick Sirianni, who is the most winning coach from a percentage standpoint in the Philadelphia Eagles franchise history. Now, where there has not been continuity for Jalen Hurts is at the offensive coordinator position, because the Philadelphia Eagles are such a good team that every time they win games, their offensive coordinator ends up getting a head coaching job somewhere else, outside of guys like Brian Johnson, who ended up being fired after the one season that he had with the New York Giants. Now, I show that comparison to Jalen Hurts, not to tell you that Justin Fields is better than Jalen Hurts. I don't want to say any crazy words up here, but we're not idiots, right? We know that Jalen Hurts is the better quarterback over Justin Fields. We know that. The reason why I showed that is to show that maybe, just maybe, a guy like Justin Fields is coming into his own. Maybe he is starting to turn that corner after spending the amount of time that he has spent in the NFL. Now, the other thing that I wanted to compare, and I don't have a graphic for this, but let's look at Justin Fields' last season, full season with the Chicago Bears, which was his 3rd year in the league. And let's compare that to Jalen Hurts' first year as a starter, which was his 2nd year in the league, because I think that these 2 years have eerily very similar comparisons to them. So let's talk about, we'll do Justin Fields first. Justin Fields had 16 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, a quarterback rating of 86.3 in his last year with the Chicago Bears, which was in 2023. 16 touchdowns. I almost want to copy this into the chat. 16 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 86.3 quarterback rating. His surrounding cast in that year was DJ Moore at wide receiver 1. It was Darnell Mooney at wide receiver 2, Cole Kmet at tight end, and Khalil Herbert at running back. Not too bad. I'm not sitting up here telling you that the Chicago Bears did everything in their power to screw this kid up like we did with Daniel Jones, or allegedly, right? It's a decent cast. Now, let's compare DJ Moore, Darnell Mooney, Cole Kmet, and Khalil Herbert to when Jalen Hurts got the keys to be the starter in his 2nd year in the NFL. Jalen Hurts had 16 touchdowns, just like Justin Fields, 9 interceptions, just like Justin Fields. His passer rating was 87.2, which is 0.9 higher than Justin Fields. His surrounding cast was Devonta Smith at wide receiver 1, Quez Watkins at wide receiver 2, Dallas Goedert at tight end, and Miles Sanders at the running back position. Miles Sanders had more yards than Khalil Herbert by about 135 yards. Dallas Goedert had more yards than Cole Kmet, and Devonta Smith had less yards than DJ Moore. When I look at those two surrounding casts around the quarterback, right, the numbers align way too similar. And the reason why I went and I chose these particular years is because you cannot forget, Jalen Hurts is 1 year older than Justin Fields is. Justin Fields is going to turn 26 years old tomorrow. His birthday is March 5th. Jalen Hurts will be turning 27 in August. So he's just a little bit under a year older than Justin Fields is. And the reason why I bring up that comparison is just think about how maybe you viewed a guy like Jalen Hurts. You all follow what we do over here on Authentic and the Beard, and y'all know that me and the Beard were big supporters of Jalen Hurts' game. Like, we thought Jalen Hurts had everything necessary to succeed in the NFL. But we'd be lying to ourselves to say that myself and the Beard were not in the minority during those times when we were talking about Jalen Hurts being, hey, this guy can get it done. When a lot of Giants fans thought that Daniel Jones was a better quarterback than Jalen Hurts was. So all of that to say that when Jalen Hurts turned the corner and the franchise put stability around him and the franchise put weapons around him and they went out there and they deemed a guy like Jalen Hurts as their franchise quarterback, which is why they spent a first-round draft pick 2 years in a row on a wide receiver. You can't forget the year before they drafted Devonta Smith, they tried to draft Jalen Reagor in the first round, and they drafted him above Justin Jefferson. It did not work. The 2020 draft for the Philadelphia Eagles is eerily similar to the New York Giants in 2022. Go look at their roster now, and then go look at the 2020 draft from the Philadelphia Eagles, and look at how many players are still on the roster, and look at how many players are making an impact. The only player from the 2020 draft for the Philadelphia Eagles that is truly making an impact is Jalen Hurts. So Howie Roseman was able to take that failure of a draft, drafting Jalen Reagor over Justin Jefferson, which is absolutely crazy in hindsight, right? He put that draft behind him, invested in his young quarterback that he deemed as the future of the franchise before everyone around the NFL community knew it. I mean, you can look at Philadelphia Eagles fans. They looked at Jalen Hurts and were like, why the hell are we spending a second-round pick on a quarterback right now when we just gave Carson Wentz this big contract? The only thing remaining here is Jalen Hurts. They ended up drafting Devonta Smith the next year. The following year, they traded for A.J. Brown. And then the following year, they ended up bringing in Saquon Barkley. And now Saquon Barkley just got that NFL record-breaking contract at the running back position. And the rest is history. They won a Super Bowl. I'm not saying that Justin Fields is a Super Bowl formula, but I am saying that we need to pump the brakes when it comes to quarterbacks like Justin Fields, who a lot of people have just written off, and he's only just a guy that's about to turn 26 years old as of tomorrow. Now, I do want to show you the graphic of Russell Wilson as well to give you a little bit more of a comparison from a guy that is more of a pocket type of passer that you could compare to Justin Fields. So I'll give you Justin Fields. Freeze this in your photogenic memory here and remember what you're seeing there, right? 19, 8 rushing touchdowns, a grand total of 27 touchdowns from the quarterback position, 3,241 yards. You could add the rushing yards if you want, and Justin Fields is a guy that's just over 4,000 total yards from the quarterback position. Now let's look at Russell Wilson in his last 17 starts, which some of these date back to Denver, and they really helped out his case because his last couple of games in Denver, he was playing well, but it was simply that contract why the Denver Broncos were, very urgent to want to move on from Russell Wilson, and Sean Payton didn't deem him as a quarterback that he could truly build around. So that's Justin Fields, 17 starts. Let's take a look at Russell Wilson here. 24 touchdowns. You add the 5, that's 29 total touchdowns. That's just 2 more than what Justin Fields put out there. 9 interceptions is actually more than what Justin Fields had. Justin Fields had 7. The rushing yards aren't bad for Russell Wilson. Neither are the rushing touchdowns. I like them, right? And the completion percentage is right around the same number that we saw from Justin Fields. The quarterback rating is about 3 points higher. So for me, when I look at Russell Wilson's numbers, right, the interesting part about it is how much are we actually going to have to pay for a guy like Russell Wilson? And if that's going to be $35 million or whatever it may be, and you could get Justin Fields, who on over the cap is valued at $10 million AAV, in my opinion, if you have the option to pick between the two, it's a no-brainer to go with a guy like Justin Fields because he can fill that void and be that guy who could be the bridge or just a stopgap type of situation. But also, he's another quarterback that becomes a viable option as a backup after you groom the rookie, or he's a great insurance policy if you can't get the rookie in this draft and you have to wait till the following draft to go out there and maybe get an Archie Manning or whoever the next quarterback class presents, maybe a Nussmeier from LSU or one of these guys. To me, the Justin Fields situation makes a little bit more sense. And again, I'm not saying that Justin Fields, is the type of kind of quarterback that Jalen Hurts is, because we all know if you've looked at the tape from Justin Fields, and if you need it, go look at the quarterback school. He has tons of videos on Justin Fields. He was a big fan of his. And throwing across the middle, passing from the pocket, recognizing coverages, pre-snap recognition, all the things that Jalen Hurts has gotten better at year after year after year. You can't forget that Jalen Hurts was not even calling the protections during his tenure as the quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles until this season when they lost Jason Kelce to retirement. So we watched Jalen Hurts get better. We watched an organization that, even though when he went out there in what you could consider his rookie campaign and only had 16 touchdowns and 9 interceptions with not much around him, they did not give up on him from the quarterback standpoint. I look at some similarities with what Justin Fields is dealing with. Now, the rumors are that Mike Tomlin is going to bring back Justin Fields. And honestly, I think that that's a smart move. Why would you want to waste and spin your wheels on a quarterback like Russell Wilson, who really didn't move the needle this year? And you can look at the maturation of George Pickens from the wide receiver position and look at the numbers under Kenny Pickett and then look at the numbers under Russell Wilson this past season. It's not that drastic of a difference. In fact, he had less yards, but he did miss a couple of games in the 2024 season. So that's how I view it. I look at Sam Darnold as not an option for the New York Giants. And more importantly, I look at the Giants as not an option for Sam Darnold. It does not make sense from his perspective, more importantly. When I look at Aaron Rodgers, I'm like, okay, that's a decent, we'll at least have a certain threshold of quarterback play that we can, hang our hats on as New York Giants fans, maybe win a couple of games, and it wouldn't cost us that much money. But at the end of the day, for me, and you guys know I've been a Justin Fields fan for a long time, a fan of his raw skill set that he has. He's one of the most dynamic runners in the entire league. And I think that skill set pairs a little bit better with what Brian Daboll can do and probably likely wants to do from the quarterback position, which is a lot of read option, a lot of RPOs, a lot of play action, a lot of boot action, a lot of design quarterback runs, and then beefing up this roster, across the board, because you can go out there and absolutely get a wide receiver weapon or two in this draft in the later rounds, and possibly even getting a running back. You guys haven't heard this take yet because I've been speaking about it so much over on Bleacher Report, but there are so many running backs in the later rounds that I'm completely infatuated with. The number one guy that I'm looking at right now in the later rounds is Brashard Smith out of SMU. Go just take a look at that dude's highlights. He's a straight up game breaker, playmaker, just waiting to happen. His numbers, I don't have them in front of me, but they were absolutely ridiculous over there at SMU. And he's another former wide receiver turned running back. But when you look at him from a pass catching standpoint out of the backfield, he's a different level of pass catcher than a guy like Tyrone Tracy. I think Tyrone Tracy could still remain and be like our every down running back. And you could bring in a guy like Brashard Smith out of SMU to be that third down running back and be that gadget, kind of like what we thought Wan'Dale Robinson might bring to the table from a backfield perspective, but even more of a dynamic playmaker. I also like Jaden Blue out of Texas. He's another guy that has that game-breaking speed. I got a buddy over there on Bleacher Report that's always in the chat. His name's Jay Gadsby, and he recommended 2 running backs to me, Brashard Smith being one of them, and Bayshul Tootin out of Virginia Tech being the other. Both of those guys ran top 3 40 times at the combine this past weekend. They are straight up blazers. And honestly, if a guy like RJ Harvey were to fall to like the 3rd, 4th, maybe let's say 4th round, the Giants would do themselves a disservice not to draft a guy like RJ Harvey. When we're talking about explosive runs, a lot of people are enamored with the skill set that a guy like Ashton Jeanty brings to the table. And he did lead the nation in most explosive runs over 10 yards. I want to say it was in the 50s. But when you look at that same number from a perspective of the amount of attempts that you have versus the amount of explosive runs that you have, RJ Harvey is leaps and bounds above all of these guys. 22% of his runs were over 10 yards. You're talking about damn near a quarter of his runs being over 10 yards. And Brashard Smith is in the same company. I want to say it was 18% of his runs were over 10 yards, explosive runs. When you get to 15 yards, RJ Harvey increases the gap between all the other running backs. Harvey is the most complete running back in this entire draft, in my opinion, not named Ashton Jeanty. Now, Omarion Hampton is another dude out of UNC who, not the game breaker type of speed that you want to see out of the running back that I would like to see paired with Tyrone Tracy. But Omarion Hampton is a complete running back. He breaks tackles like nobody's business. I'm a fan of Caleb Johnson out of Iowa. I got to see him in person this year against Maryland, and he put up like 160 yards against us. I like Travion Henderson out of Ohio State. He's another complete running back. I think Quinshon Judkins, the other running back out of Ohio State, could be similar to the vibes of being a game breaker of what I was talking about with Brashard Smith and what I was talking about with guys like Jaden Blue and Bayshul Tootin. The thing that I didn't see on Bayshul Tootin's tape, and he ran a 4.28 at the combine, I think it was, I didn't see the home runs being hit by Bayshul Tootin. And he's a smaller stature kind of running back, low to the ground, built like a Boston Scott type of vibe, in my opinion. He's just a guy that's just going to bulldoze his way to big runs. But when he had opportunity to break those home run type of runs, those Saquon Barkley type of runs, all too often I was seeing him getting caught from behind. So there's a ton of talent in this draft to upgrade this roster from a wide receiver perspective. You got guys like Jaden Higgins. You got his partner over there at Iowa State in Jalen Knoll. Both of those guys could come in and be day one starters, in my opinion. Guys like Matthew Golden out of Texas. If a guy like that were to be on the fringe of the first round, I mean, you got to just abandon your plan as far as drafting for need and just draft this guy. He's the best pure route runner in the entire draft class, if you ask me. Even guys like Luther Burden, these guys might fall. I'm seeing these mock drafts, and all too often there's too many great players that are in the second round where it's going to make that decision extremely difficult for the New York Giants. Then there's flyer guys that you could, draft towards the end of the draft, guys like Savion Williams out of TCU, who's just a freak athlete, sitting somewhere around like 6'4", straight up, cut up, built like a DK Metcalf, A.J. Brown. They had this guy in the Wildcat at TCU. They had this guy playing quarterback, running back, tight end, wide receiver, all of it. And he's a straight up playmaker. I like the other wide receiver at TCU too, Jack Besh. There's not a lot of top-end talent in this draft. There's not a Malik Neighbors in this wide receiver core. Maybe Tedero McMillan could be that guy. But as far as those guys that are in the middle that could come in and be day one starters, similar to what we saw out of a guy like Sterling Shepard early on in his career, there are way too many wide receivers in this draft like that. Jalen Royals out of Utah State, Kyle Williams out of Washington State. I love Xavier Restrepo out of Miami, who played with Cam Ward. And when you look at these mock drafts, they have Xavier Restrepo getting drafted sometimes in the fourth round. I don't understand it, but ton of talent. If you need some names to you want to check out some tape, some names I'd recommend, just reach out to me on Twitter. There's a ton of guys. Ricky White out of UNLV is another guy that can play the outside. He's a little bit undersized, but he can play that outside like a dog. Big playmaker out there as well. Who else do I like? Torrey Horton out of Colorado State's another guy that's going under the radar because he was injured for the majority of the 2024 season. Ty Felton, man. My guy out of Maryland, y'all know I was talking about Ty throughout the whole entire season last year. And he went out there and ran a 4.38, and I had no idea that he was going to be able to run that fast. So ton of talent out there nonetheless. We'll spend some time to speak on just draft talk, as we get closer to the draft. But how are y'all feeling? I want to see how everybody's, what y'all takes are on the quarterback position. After hearing all of that, did I maybe influence you to maybe go a little bit more towards the Justin Fields, maybe more towards the Aaron Rodgers? Or are you feeling like, hey, let's just stay in this direction and go out there and just draft our quarterback? Definitely want to hear how y'all feel about it. Let's get to the Super Chats first. I think there were a couple that came in here. Let me see. Nope, we're good on the Super Chat, so I'll just start with the regular chat here. Let me see. Sarah says, I don't like no wide receivers from TCU, Rager and Quentin Johnston. Yeah, Quentin Johnston is coming around. He's turning the corner, and these guys are not even that level of a prospect. But when you see, if you haven't looked at Savion Williams, just go look at the freak athlete that he is. He's, from an athletic standpoint, he's leaps and bounds above what you saw out of Quentin Johnston and Jalen Rager, who are more pure wide receivers. Savion Williams would be a guy that I would bring in to be a weapon. He'd be a guy I would utilize all over the field. And listen, when this guy gets the ball in his hands, he's a straight-up maniac. AG says, that sounds amazing, but what makes Fields want to come here? Like he's second year at Pitt. He knows the playbook. The team wants him. What makes him want to leave all that and come here? It'd be the situation where they don't want him. You got to understand that when Justin Fields got to Pittsburgh, they declined the fifth-year option that would have kept him on the roster this year. So I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that Justin Fields is going to be in Pittsburgh. I think it's very likely, though, at the same time. And listen, I'm not going to sit up here and try to pretend like I know where these guys want to go. Aaron Rodgers, Justin Fields, Russell Wilson, Sam Darnold. I can't even sit up here and pretend like I know where they would want to go. I can speculate. And in regards to Sam Darnold, I can really speculate because why the hell would you want to come play for the New York Giants? But that does apply to all these quarterbacks, to be honest. Let me see what else we got here. A big Giants fan too says, yes, we should sign Aaron Rodgers and no other quarterback. That could be a good situation. Like I just explained, I'm not too far off on it. Sarah says that paying Russell Wilson $35 million would be crazy. You deserve to lose your job if it fails. And bringing in Russell Wilson is not going to solve your problems for the future at all. And it's going to cost you a lot of money. It's why I don't want to bring in Sam Darnold. It's why I don't want to bring in Russell Wilson. You know, Matthew Stafford on the opposite hand there, you know what you're getting. You know the level of quarterback play that you're going to get if you bring in a guy like Matthew Stafford. Let me see what else we got. Pete Cho says the difference between those two are the offensive lines they were behind. Absolutely. Philly's offensive line was miles better than Chicago's. And with Pittsburgh's offensive line was cheeks this year. That's another point. And, you know, y'all know I don't like to do that, right? Where it's like, oh, man, if you put, you know, Daniel Jones on the Eagles, he's a franchise quarterback. You know, and that's why I had to preface it by saying, like, I'm not comparing, you know, or saying that Justin Fields is the same caliber quarterback as a Jalen Hurts is. But I just wanted to allude to some of the stability that has been around Jalen Hurts and the commitment, more importantly, that has been around him. Lucky's in the building, says, dude, Daniel Jones put up those same numbers in 2022 in 16 games. No, he did not, though. That's the thing. He did not. Daniel Jones had 15 passing touchdowns in 2022, and he had 7 rushing touchdowns. The rushing numbers looked similar, but I think you could do more with a guy like with Justin Fields. And then look at this. Go look at Daniel Jones' last 17 games underneath the same regime. Look at that, and I think that'll give you that. Justin Fields, to me, has always been in a different ballpark than Daniel Jones. I don't even like those comparisons, to be honest. Daniel Jones, you know, Brian Daboll found a way to maximize his skill set in 2022 and maximizing it, not putting him in a bad situation and minimizing it like what we've seen with Justin Fields. Maximizing Daniel Jones had him at 15 passing touchdowns. Like, quite frankly, I could not talk about Daniel Jones for the rest of my life. Like, I'm so glad those years are behind. Stanley's in the building. He says, it's funny how people saying Shedeur Sanders ain't got no arm talent when he can make all the NFL throws. You don't need elite arm talent when you just need a good arm talent. That Shedeur Sanders has. He does have that, but I mean, there are times, man, when you see like hole shot one-on-one, put the ball in the hole, he can't do it. I have proof of that. I have almost all 22 from Shedeur Sanders from this last season. And I have cut-ups that I'm going to share with you guys throughout the offseason before we get to the draft. Mistakes that both of these quarterbacks have on their tape in Cam Ward and in Shedeur Sanders. And when you look at the compilation of mistakes from Shedeur Sanders, it's a bit different than the mistakes that you see from Cam Ward. Cam Ward's mistakes stem from trying to play too much hero ball. But listen, man, I mean, there are times where Shedeur Sanders just comes up short. It is what it is. And I'm not saying that he can't come into the league and make those throws. He's obviously going to get better once he gets in the NFL. There are people that think that your arm talent cannot improve as you, develop your mechanics, especially from a lower body. Like when you get your feet right and your drop back right, it can work miracles for your arm talent up top. And we've seen guys that have gotten better at squeezing the ball in tight windows, Jalen Hurts being one of those guys, in my opinion. So I think that when it comes to Shedeur Sanders, from an arm talent standpoint, all the questions they're not unwarranted. I know people are getting mad about the criticism. Listen, the criticism of Shedeur Sanders, the person and the surroundings around him from his family and from Deion and all that, I block all that bullshit out. I'm not even listening to that. If you come into like my comments and you're talking about, oh man, Deion Sanders is going to be a fucking fiasco on the sidelines, I'm not even going to take you seriously. But for those of the people that are out there saying like, look, I have questions about his arm talent, look at the quarterbacks that have came into the draft over the past couple of years that have similar type of arm talent, and look at how many of them have had success in the NFL. Not many. Joe Burrow, Joe Montana, you know what I mean? Like outside of that, like if you look at even Geno Smith, A lot of people have been making comparisons uh, to Geno Smith as far as in regards to Shador Sanders. And I've even done it because I think their play style is a little bit similar. But Geno Smith has a way better arm talent than Shador Sanders does currently. And that's a fact. And even his build, his body is much bigger than what we're seeing from a Shador Sanders. So, like, for the people, I see a lot of people, and I'm not saying that this is Stanley, but I see a lot of people on my social media that are like, it gets underneath their skin when they see criticism of Shador Sanders. And I get it. That's cool, man. But, like, for me, it's like, if you don't like my quarterback one prospect in the draft, I don't care. Like, you might be able to influence my opinion if you bring some facts to the table. But at the end of the day, for the people that are questioning the arm talent on both of these quarterbacks, I think it's very warranted. Like, Cam Ward doesn't come across as like Josh Allen arm talent, but to me, it is elite arm talent. He's got great arm talent, better than a Shador Sanders. Let me see what else we got. Bluegrass said that Justin Fields would be great and that Stafford has a great arm. I don't disagree with none of that. Big Blue Steph Forever says, yeah, that was a really good interview with Slim Slay and Pat Leonard. It really was, man. There were some gems. And I saw when Pat Leonard, like, clipped it up and put it on his Twitter, like, it wasn't getting a lot of traction. And I was just like, man, like, sometimes that them nuggets, that, like, elite, nerd ball talk type of stuff, a lot of people just don't see eye to eye with it, and it doesn't gain as much traction. But then I'll see, like, a tweet that says, like, Shador Sanders is garbage, and it's got like 3,000 likes on it and whatever. Social media is just a place that just, they're infatuated with a lot of bullshit. That's just how it is. Let me see. Sarah says, would you rather have Cousins for cheap or Rodgers? I think that at this point in their careers, they're both going to be like relatively cheap, but I do foresee Kirk Cousins demanding a little bit more money after he is likely released by the Atlanta Falcons. But I would consider Kirk Cousins. I would definitely consider him. I put him in that same ballpark as a Russell Wilson at this particular moment in time. Let's see. Let's try to catch up here because we are a little bit behind on the chat here. B-Rog says, you bring up a few good points. I bet the money could work with AR. If we can do it and get the guy at number 3, then do it for $25 million. I'm with you on that. DeMario says, salute Authentic. Honestly, we need to draft a quarterback and get a vet for a season. That's exactly how I'm looking at it. And whether we view Justin Fields as a vet or not, I look at him as a guy that's entering his veteranship, but he's still extremely young at just 26 years old on his birthday tomorrow. Let me see. Stanley said, hey, Authentic, I don't think the Giants will draft CJ. I think he means RJ Harvey. Because they got Tyrone Tracy. Harvey is just a outside run. No way, no fucking way. Hell no. That's a horrible take. He is not just an outside runner. He's a guy that can do it between the tackles. He's built like a straight up block. I totally disagree with that take. And if you want examples, reach out on Twitter. But yeah, definitely not. And I don't look at Tyrone Tracy as a running back that makes me go, I can't draft another running back. I don't look at him like that. I think he's a very capable running back, hit the ground running, pun intended, his first year. But, I do agree with you that the Giants might not draft a guy like that. But do you think the Giants need to draft Cam Scatterbo? He's a fullback, bro. Cam's a fullback in my eyes. When he gets to the NFL, he's not going to be able to overpower defenses, in my opinion, the way that he did in college. But at the end of the day, I have more all-22 on RJ Harvey than I do on Cam Scatterbo. But, in my opinion, and, I don't try to shit on opinions, but RJ Harvey's in a whole fucking different league than Cam Scatterbo is. Like, just in a whole different ballpark. RJ Harvey's going to be, in my opinion, one of the top 3 running backs from this class when it's all said and done. And honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if his NFL career panned out better than an Ashton Genty. It wouldn't surprise me. I'm not saying it's going to, but it wouldn't surprise me. Chris P says, definitely need to draft a quarterback and bring in Fields. Consider doubling up on defensive line in the draft. And he says he likes Quinshon Judkins a lot. I'm a big fan of Quinshon Judkins as well. He was like, when I was first getting through the process, looking at tape, I was like, man, Judkins is, I almost favored him over Travion Henderson for a little while there. But right now, I kind of have them. I'd put Travion a tick above Quinshon Judkins, but I'm a fan. Quinshon Judkins, although he wasn't known for the speed, when he gets the opportunity to hit the home runs, he always does it. And that's what he was doing at Ohio State. Chris Peace went on to say, pay Fields $15 million a year for 2 years, $25 million guaranteed, and I bet he takes it. I think he would take it too. I look at his value a little bit less than that, in my opinion, but we'll see. The market will set his value here soon. Let me see. Big Giants fan 2 said it. Aaron Rodgers makes the best sense. If we get Justin Fields, we're showing our hand. I don't think it does, because Justin Fields and Aaron Rodgers both check 2 boxes. They could start week 1. We saw Justin Fields do that this past year with the Steelers, and Aaron Rodgers did it, for the entire season with the New York Jets. So I don't think it really shows your hand. And you could, with both of those guys, signing both of those quarterbacks, it doesn't mean that you can't draft a quarterback at 3. It doesn't mean that you can't trade up to 1 either. So I don't think it shows your hand. They're gonna have to get a quarterback. They got to get one in free agency. And if it's Fields, I'm cool with that. If it's Rodgers, I'm cool with that as well. Shout out to House MDSB7 says, Giants fan watching at 1:30 a.m. in London, UK. I'm leaning Aaron Rodgers and build a team around him so we can have a squad ready for the future quarterback. If we take a QB in the draft, it's Dart for me in the 2nd round. I'm not mad at the Dart take, but this is what I'll say about building around Aaron Rodgers. And shout out to House MD. I haven't seen House MD in here, I don't think, during the season. Appreciate you pulling up and rocking out with us. But this is what I'll say about building around Aaron Rodgers. This is why I brought up the statement from Darius Slayton before I started to talk about Justin Fields, because I just agree with it to a T, where he said, if you look at the way that the Ravens have played football since Lamar Jackson got there, it has been tailored to his skill set. I am very opposite of a lot of the other Giants content creators. During the Daniel Jones era, a lot of the other Giants content creators would be out here saying, like, you can build the roster first and then you can just drop the quarterback in. Because of what Darius Slayton is saying here, and I agree with it so much, I think it's much more important to get your franchise quarterback from day one. And then you build around that particular quarterback with the belief in that quarterback. That is what the Philadelphia Eagles did. That is what the Baltimore Ravens did around Lamar Jackson. And that is what countless other franchises that have that elite quarterback running their franchise have done. Now, it starts with getting the elite quarterback. I'm very opposed to building up the roster. Look at how the San Francisco 49ers are operating right now. I challenge you to look at their defensive front 3 years ago, 2 years ago, in comparison to what they have on their defensive front and on that defense in total right now. Guys like Charvarius Ward are headed towards free agency, and the 49ers are likely not going to bring him back. So it is all about timing. You get that quarterback first, then you're not rushing to try to find that quarterback. San Francisco built the team first, and they did a fantastic job of doing that. But when they went to go bring in their quarterback in Trey Lance, and they traded 3 first-rounders for him, so they lost a ton of draft capital, brought him in, and it took for them to have the realization point that he was not their guy. And early on, at least they ditched him and, got some draft compensation back for it. But at the end of the day, look at it. The San Francisco 49ers are kind of falling apart a little bit. Like, would it surprise you if the San Francisco 49ers won 8-9 games next year? It wouldn't surprise me. And honestly, I don't think that Brock Purdy is the answer at the quarterback position. And it speaks volumes because he's a guy that does not have an elite characteristic anywhere in his game. And if there was one, it would be his skill set of being an anticipatory quarterback, right? Like, Brock knows how to get that ball out early and fast, and he's not going to take a lot of unnecessary sacks. But at the end of the day, I do think that he's more towards the bottom end of what a franchise quarterback could look like. He's not at that elite top end where it's like, man, you can say, wow, look at this guy's arm strength. Look at this guy's arm talent. Look at the capability that this guy brings to the table from a running perspective. He does not check a lot of boxes. So when you look at the way that the 49ers have built their team, it's absolutely not around Brock Purdy. And it wouldn't surprise me if their Super Bowl window with this particular unit around the quarterback is gone, to be honest, It wouldn't surprise me. And I think the Philadelphia Eagles, the reason why their window remained open throughout that whole entire time is because they did it proper. They got the quarterback and said, we're going to build around the quarterback. And then when that doesn't work, maybe we can pivot off of that. But even all the way leading up to last draft, I believe it was, when they paid Jalen Hurts, they paid him about a week before the 2024 NFL draft. They still went out there and drafted a quarterback in the 6th round. So, it just goes to show you how the Philadelphia Eagles operate with thinking that is proactive and not reactive. They did the same thing with Carson Wentz. They gave Carson Wentz the money before the 2020 season, and then they got to the 2020 draft, and they drafted Jalen Hurts. And Eagles fans were like, what's going on here? And look at the way that they've drafted as of late, continuously supporting the assets that go around a quarterback. And they've drafted, 15 defensive linemen in the past 3 drafts? Defense, man. Defense, trenches, weapons. They got the weapons on the outside. They don't need to do too much. They can take a flyer on one of these wide receivers in one of the late rounds if they want to. I've seen some mock drafts that have Luther Burden fall into the Philadelphia Eagles, and I hope that's not the case because we're in trouble if that is the case. But I am much more pro get the quarterback and then build around the quarterback. Unless you just happen to be in a situation where you have weapons out there. I'm sure Sarah could speak to this where, okay, you got Jordan Addison and you got, Justin Jefferson over there, guys that you brought in to, aid what was happening at the quarterback position so that you could truly make a Super Bowl run. But when it didn't work, they just stripped it all down and they rebuilt that defense. Look at how they brought in Andrew Van Ginkel, Jonathan Grenard, and many more pieces. They drafted, I want to say that was the Vikings that drafted Dallas Turner, I believe it was. Offensively, retooling things, offensive line. And they were okay with having a regression in the season following the success that Kirk Cousins had where he had 11 one-score wins. And they just happened to not miss a beat with Sam Darnold. They hit on that, bringing in a bridge quarterback, and they were able to still win games. I'm sure Minnesota Vikings fans are not complaining about that going, oh, man, I wish we were picking at the top of the draft this year or some shit like that because they did it the right way. They drafted their quarterback with the bridge quarterback on the roster. But nonetheless, this is a good point you brought up here, House. Salute to you for pulling up and rocking out with us today. Stanley says that Jalen Hurts is still overrated. Y'all act like he had a phenomenal season. It was the Eagles defense that won the Eagles the Super Bowl, not Hurts. I think that's just bullshit, Stanley. I got to keep it real with you. The real true reason why the Philadelphia Eagles were in position to even win a Super Bowl was because of that offensive line, the trenches, obviously, and Saquon Barkley at the running back position. Look, when A.J. Brown went down and he had that injury and he missed like 4 games, it was Saquon that was steadily being the engine for that offense. When Devonta Smith had to miss a couple of games this year, it was Saquon. When Jordan Mailata was on IR this year for over 4 games, it was Saquon, right? Who else? They had more injuries. When Mekhi Becton missed time, when Lane Johnson missed time, it was Saquon. Now, they already have the roster constructed around them. And if you think that Jalen Hurts is an overrated quarterback, I'm not here to change your opinion on that. I think that Jalen Hurts is what he is. He's a top 10 quarterback in this league, but he's not in the big 4. He's not in the Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow conversation. I even think from a quarterbacking standpoint, I would put a guy like Justin Herbert above Jalen Hurts. And there are other quarterbacks that I would still take over Jalen Hurts, like Matthew Stafford. I would take him over. Even a Jaden Daniels. I know the sample size is small, but right now I'm taking Jaden Daniels over Jalen Hurts because Jaden Daniels has more of a versatile skill set. But listen, if Jalen Hurts didn't prove you wrong today, now, right now, where he is at right now, when some of these people were telling me that the window for the Philadelphia Eagles was closed, if he hasn't proved it to you now, he's never going to be able to prove it to you. And I don't think Jalen Hurts is overrated or underrated. I think he's rated exactly where he needs to be. He's a quarterback that can go out there and win you a Super Bowl. He has that under his belt. And that's really all you need in the NFL to be able to succeed. Let's see what else we got. Chris P said arm talent can improve, but the wide receiver talent improves as well. That's very true. But go look at Jalen Hurts' mechanics in his first year in 2021 as a starter. Go look at his mechanics back then. It's all on JT O'Sullivan's quarterback school page as well if you want to see it. His mechanics are night and day, and he's become a better passer. Look at the pass that really put the nail in the coffin on the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl. And I know everybody is going to, recency bias kicks in, right? And they're like, oh, that defensive line in the Super Bowl got to the quarterback and really wreaked havoc on Patrick Mahomes, and that is facts. But at the end of the day, how did they get there? It wasn't just that defensive line. Defensive line had a fantastic Super Bowl. It's the same exact type of reaction that we got from Patrick Mahomes when he lost the Super Bowl to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Like, oh, man, it's the same shit that had fucking Joe Shane saying Patrick Mahomes couldn't survive behind that offensive line. And listen, man, that's bullshit at the end of the day. We're talking about what happened in the Super Bowl, not what happened in the regular season. The Giants are in no position right now to even be thinking about sniffing a Super Bowl. So I'm just looking to get back on track. And yeah, the trenches are important. Don't get me wrong, especially on the defensive side of the ball. But you're not going to win a Super Bowl without a quarterback making the kind of plays that Jalen Hurts made in that Super Bowl. And I love that throw that he put down the middle to Devonta Smith to put the nail in the coffin. I was just like, God, not many quarterbacks making that throw. You know, you want to bring in one of these average guys. Think back to the Super Bowl with the San Francisco 49ers with Jimmy Garoppolo, where he was literally in that exact same situation where he could have put the game away with the throw down the middle of the field. And instead, he overthrew the ball, and the rest is history. So I think that Jalen Hurts is a guy that's rated properly. You know, with all the hate that he gets and with all the hype that he gets, and with the people who are somewhere right in the middle where me and the Beard are at here, you know, as just being a little bit more, in my opinion, a little bit more rational, Jalen Hurts is just a solid quarterback, and he's an above-average quarterback in this league, and he's consistent at being above average. He's not a guy that goes out there and gives you these random-ass games where he's just going to throw 4 interceptions or 3 interceptions or go on some kind of a cold streak where he's just completely struggling, not getting the ball in the end zone. That's not his style. Shout out to R0B. Hey, Rob, you gotta cool the fuck out on them spaces, bro. You've been fucking wilding out, bro. I heard you on that last space. That shit was crazy. You gotta treat people a little bit differently, bro. If you want me to be suggesting my folks to go over to your channel and fuck with you, bro, because man, that last shit you was doing the other day, bro, that's not good for your career and what you're trying to do. But shout out to Rob in the building. Shout out to the Beard in the building too. I see you, fam. What's going on? It's a rack of people here in the building. I see y'all. So let me see. Stanley says, hey, Authentic, I think you're underestimating Cam Scatterbo. He has a very strong, powerful running back. Or I guess you're saying he is a very strong, powerful running back. That's hard to bring down because most NFL linebackers are light, weighing 200 to 225. We'll revisit it. You know, I don't think you've brought enough to the table about Cam Scatterbo that's going to make me a true believer. I think you can come into the league and have a little bit of success, but as far as what the Giants need, I'm not thinking in that old regard of like, hey, man, let's bring in a power running back now to pair with Tyrone Tracy. Tyrone Tracy is not truly like a dynamic running back like what we had in Saquon. So I'm away from the thinking of pairing our current running back with a power running back. We need players that are going to go score fucking touchdowns, in my opinion. And Cam Scatterbo is a guy that, you know, I don't think is going to be a true threat at scoring touchdowns in the NFL. In my opinion, from a short distance, you know, goal line type of perspective, yeah, I think he could do some of those things. But as far as, you know, breaking runs out of the red zone, I don't see that happening for Cam Scatterbo. I got to highlight this one on the screen because, you know, the Beard gets, you know, he get VIP. Let me open up the rope one time. He said Jalen Hurts is not overrated, the Beard. Yeah, I'm with you on that, bro. I think people like the disdain for Philadelphia makes people judge, especially in the Giants community, judge Jalen Hurts a little bit more harshly. It's the same shit that they were saying about Dak Prescott too, though. Like, I understand it. These guys are in the division, and it makes it hard to be, you know, have a balanced opinion on these guys because we hate them. We hate these division rivalries, and I get that. They've been owning us over the last couple of years too. I think Brian Dable is 4-14 in the division since they got hired. Oh, that's terrible. And I think they only have one win against Jalen Hurts and Dak Prescott, and that was against Jalen Hurts in 2021, I believe that was. Or maybe that was 2020. Whatever game it was, Jalen Hurts threw 3 interceptions. I do remember that one very well. Let me see. Cavale Reacts is in the building, says, Jalen Hurts is definitely not overrated. Don't fault him just because the Eagles have a GM that knows how to do his job and build around his quarterback. Yeah, I'm right there with you. And I feel like most people that look at Jalen Hurts from a even keel perspective are going to say this. Like, he's not elite in that category of the big four, but don't put him in the category with guys like, you know, Daniel Jones and motherfuckers like that. I just don't see that happening. Yeah, the Beard says he's still on baby watch. Yeah, that baby about to pop out any day. Your boy Authentic about to be an uncle. Let me see. Darnell D said that take about Hurt sounds like what they used to say about Eli after. Ooh, you don't want to go there, Darnell. You don't want to go there, Darnell. Look, I've experimented with this thought as well. What's crazy is if you look at the first couple of years comparisons, you can't forget that Eli Manning was an interception. I'm talking like, yo, he was an interception maniac them first couple of years, man. He was throwing picks all over the place. And, you know, my Homer type of fandom that I had back then, Eli could do no wrong. Like, My homie, who is the reason why I'm a New York Giants fan, was convincing me, like, that guy ain't the guy. I was like, man, just believe, bro. Just believe he's the guy. And that was when I was more of a fanatic in a way of like, oh, it's my team. We got the best players type shit. And Eli just happened to, prove me right in that case. But had that have been today, that third year, I would have started to be like, hey, man, I don't know about this Eli Manning guy. This guy, first overall, we traded for this guy. He's kind of struggling out here. But then again, we just didn't have all the data and, the access to the data that we have these days. But it's a good point right here, man. This is a really good point. For the people that, when Eli was up for being first ballot Hall of Fame just a couple of weeks back, like, hey, Eli Manning's not a first ballot Hall of Famer. You got to keep that same type of energy, I think, if you're going to look at Jalen Hurts and think that he's not a good quarterback. At bare minimum, he's a good quarterback. Oh, I love this next one right here. Cavell React says we need DJ Giddens. So let me tell you my take on DJ Giddens. Love DJ Giddens. This is the running back out of Kansas State. He's got a nice NFL build to his game. And when you look at the runs that are 10 plus, he was also high. Do I got that note here? Let me see if I can pull this up. Y'all could be patient for a second. Let me see. Because I got these exact numbers with all of these running backs here with the explosive plays. Let me just find this note on DJ. But DJ Giddens, let me tell you, when I first looked at his tape, I thought he lacked the top end speed. Like, he has the best first gear of any running back in this class to me. Like, the way he just goes from, 0 to his max speed, right? He does that so quickly. I got these numbers here. And these numbers of DJ Giddens surprised me because he doesn't have that home run speed. He doesn't have that. But he's a one cut and go. Kind of reminds me of Caleb Johnson a little bit out of Iowa as well. But when looking at some of these numbers, right? So it was the homie Nick Pentakoff. And you guys should follow him on Twitter. He's like a new up-and-coming sports kind of analyst type guy that just tweets out some really good numbers. And he posted notable running backs, explosive runs during the 2024 season. And these are runs of 10-plus yards. Ashton Genty, R.J. Harvey, Omarion Hampton, Cam Scatabo was on that list as well. Caleb Johnson, Taj Brooks. That was the top 6 right there. But when you looked at it from a percentage perspective, like I was talking about early, the top guys who had the most explosive runs, they all fall down. Like, dude, Ashton Genty had like 350 rushing attempts. There was no other running back that sniffed near 300. And when you look at his percentage of explosive runs dipped all the way down to 16.8. Cam Scatabo's explosive runs dipped down to 15.3, which is not even in the top 10. R.J. Harvey was the highest, 23.27. And DJ Giddens stood out to me at 17.4 because he was a running back that got tackled a lot at that 10-yard mark from what I saw on his tape. I like DJ Giddens a lot. I like him a lot. I don't think he's a really good fit for what the Giants do. I think he's very similar to Tyrone Tracy. But I just don't think it's a great pairing to have two running backs unless you're looking at DJ Giddens as being a depth piece. I'm looking at guys like Brashard Smith to come in and be a weapon. I'm looking at guys like, Jaden Blue to come in and be a weapon. Savion Williams could be a running back / wide receiver type of weapon. And R.J. Harvey, I think, could absolutely not only be a weapon, I think could be a better every down running back than Tyrone Tracy is, which would then make Tyrone Tracy down the line, future-wise, Tyrone Tracy could be that depth piece running back that you could utilize with the New York Giants. But I'm glad you brought up DJ Giddens because, look, to keep it real, I was sleeping on DJ Giddens. After I looked at the first couple of games of tape, I was sleeping on him. And then I started looking at some of the more like deep numbers on him. And as I continued to look at more tape during the process, it was like, oh man, DJ Giddens is going to be a really good running back one day in the NFL. Let me see what Rob talking. Rob says, not one of my proudest moments. I'm glad you said that because at first when I saw that at glance, I thought you said one of my proudest moments. Keep your cool, man. That shit was crazy, bro. That shit was absolute, bro. And I kept a receipt on that. I was like, y'all in here bugging out. You get a beat reporter coming in, whether you deem him to be, have the necessary accolades or resume that you just, show people respect, bro. That shit was, I damn near unfollowed you, Rob. I was about to stop fucking with you off that shit. I ain't gonna lie, bro. I gotta keep it real with you. The Beard said, realistically, you want Tyrone Tracy to be your third. Nah, I don't, Beard. I don't. I really don't. I think that Tyrone Tracy has everything it takes to be an every down running back in the NFL. He kind of showed that this year, and they really didn't even start to utilize him until after, like, what was that? He was in the Seahawks game, so that was like week 5 or something like that. I think Tyrone Tracy does all the stuff between the tackles well. He's a guy that can pass protect as well, and he's going to constantly get better at that. I don't think he suits the third down running back vibe well, because as a pass catcher, he's decent, but I just don't think he's a third down running back. I think he's more of an every down running back, and I think he'll be like in the 20s type of range, as far as the caliber of starting running backs goes. Rob said the 15-hour spaces are wearing on him. Yeah, you was going crazy, so I'll give you a pass on that, bro. And I really thought it over. And I was like, I got to spare my guy, Rob. He just got out of pocket a little bit. He's probably lacking sleep and all that good stuff. Let me see. House, who's tapping in at like damn near 2 a.m. over there in the UK, says, what do the Giants do at linebacker? It feels like an area of neglect on our defense that gets the odd free agent addition and mid-round picks. Any linebackers we could draft to fit Bowen's scheme? Okay, so linebackers are the last unit that I've been scouting tape on. I'm behind on linebackers, and I'm behind a bit on the safeties. Now, I do think we have decent personnel as far as the starters go at the linebacker position. Let me grab something over here real quick, because I just did some notes on linebackers. Hold on one second. All right. Let's plug back into the matrix here one time. Hold on one second, y'all. All right. So, linebackers that stood out at the combine to me. If Jahad Campbell from Alabama falls to the second round, you will be a damn fool not to draft him. And I'm going to post a couple of clips coming up in the next couple of weeks. It might be during a live stream, but Jahad Campbell looked like a whole damn freak at the combine. And he has tape to back it up. He ran a 4.52 at the combine, and he is not a small guy. He is a large stature human being. And I think that he could be a guy that could play a little bit of inside, but also could shift to the outside linebacker position and give some depth, to the edge rusher position. So he's a guy that could serve 2 different roles, I feel like. Could kind of play what they thought a guy like, what's my guy, Isaiah Simmons could be. Now, big fan of Shamar James out of Florida. Okay, this kid just jumped up on my radar at the combine, and a lot of it had to do with his 40 time. Kane Madrano out of UCLA. This dude ran a 4.46. And then shout out to the homie D-Kit, who, me and D-Kit really have had a couple of little beefs, actually, on Twitter. But I respect his how much he knows football. And he's probably the only person outside of like the He's a Giants guys and a few other folks that are like knee deep in this draft shit like how I am, and has the time to do it. Like every day I'm looking at tape. My iPad is stocked up with all 22 games. And Nick Martin out of Oklahoma State, that's D-Kit's guy. And he ran a 4.53 at the combine. I got a chance to look at a couple of his games. The dude is going to be a guy. Now, I had a couple other linebackers on my list too. Let me see if it's in this book. It might be in another book here. Yeah, it's in this book. More guys that stood out at the combine to me as well. This dude, Buchanan out of Cal, ran the drills extremely well, stood out to me. He ran a 4.61. Obviously, Shamar James, Nick Martin. Bam Martin Scott was another guy out of South Carolina. Keep your eyes on him. I think he's another one. The linebacker out of Miami, Francis, I'm not too sure how to pronounce his name, Francisco Mawigua. That's definitely some Hawaiian stuff going on there. He also stood out to me. Smile Munden Jr., who ran a 4.62 out of Georgia. The dude is built kind of like a defensive back, but he's absolutely a dog out there. He can cover. He's more of a coverage linebacker. He ended up having a ball hit him in the eye at the combine. And I was like, I put down a little asterisk, like, maybe his hands aren't what I thought they were. Chris Paul Jr. out of Ole Miss is another guy. And look, this is another guy that did not participate at the combine due to an injury, but he led the nation in tackles. He was dealing with a hamstring injury and did not participate. And that is Cody Swessinger out of UCLA. He's another guy. So there are a lot of good linebackers, front run by Jahad Campbell coming out in this draft, who ran that 4.52 at 6'2", 235 pounds. Some of these 40 times for some of these bigger stature guys, literally just absolutely ridiculous. I really couldn't believe that some of these guys were moving that fast. And me and the Beard were talking about going out and running the 40-yard dash and whatnot, and I thought I could probably run like a 4.6. I don't know, man. I was seeing some of these guys running 4.6, and they looked a lot faster than me. So I really can't wait to get out there and really test that, that theory out about where, as a 41-year-old man turning 42 in July, can run a 40-yard dash and maybe, break the mold on that. Shout out to Chris Peace. He says, as a K-State fan, I love Giddens as well. Yeah, he's a good running back. The other thing I want to say about Giddens is he runs a little upright. He's kind of on that Eddie George shit a little bit. And I don't know how that's going to translate to the NFL, if that'll translate as well. The Beard said, understandable. He said, what are your thoughts on Ollie Gordon? Love Ollie Gordon. Senior Bowl, showed out, big stature running back. Ollie Gordon just doesn't have the speed. And it's the same kind of thing with Cam Scatterbo. Like, is that going to translate to the NFL where these dudes are going to be able to still keep their their Mike Allstott type of approach, right? I don't know if that's going to work out on this level. So we'll have to see. I mean, once for me, it used to be quarterbacks, right? Like, I used to be able to be like, I can judge a quarterback for how he plays in college. And then when he got to the NFL, it was almost like I was looking at a different player. Nowadays, the way that the college game is being, more of a transfer and transition into NFL, and these quarterbacks are more NFL ready, it's easier for me to scout these quarterbacks. Whether or not I'll be right, I really don't know, but I think it's easier for me to evaluate them coming into the league. But with guys like Giddens and Scatterbo, it's really hard to tell. But for me, they don't possess the skill set that makes me go, oh, I got to draft that guy. What big running backs that don't have speed are truly succeeding in the NFL right now? I won't even think of them. I'll allow you guys to name some of the names in the NFL that you think, from a big running back standpoint, outside of like Derrick Henry, who probably runs a 4.4 right now. What big running backs are having a lot of success in the league? Let me see. Oh, yeah, I like this one, Stanley. Stanley says, hey, Authentic. I think the Rutgers running back, Kyle, I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name either. Monin Guy, I guess, is a great running back because he could be used as a receiver as well. I took a look at some of his tape, and he definitely looks like more of the kind of running back that I would want to bring in. R0B says, I like Tracy. I love his patience, wrong patience, but I got you. When he runs, the way he can hide behind the lineman and then explode is really good. And if we can get a Cam Ward or a Shedeur Sanders, I think that will help him a lot. Absolutely. You saw with Tyrone Tracy that when he had the running quarterback in Daniel Jones in the lineup, that was when he had his biggest games. When we went to Drew Lock and Tommy DeVito and all that shit, you saw that Tyrone Tracy kind of had a bit of a fall off towards the end of the year, and he went, I want to say it was 6 games without having over 60 yards. Yeah, so, I definitely think that he'll benefit from having a better quarterback out there. Giants fan 2 says, what do you think about Riley Leonard? Yeah, not a big fan, Notre Dame quarterback, former Duke quarterback. Did play well, though, in the Senior Bowl. Went out to the combine, had a pretty decent day, too, was throwing the ball fairly well. He's a guy that just doesn't have any elite characteristics to me and could just be just another guy in the NFL. So maybe a late round flyer, I'd be okay with it, but definitely not targeting Riley Leonard that much. Stanley says he also likes the cornerback. Is it Dorian? I thought it was Darian Porter. I might be wrong. Out of Iowa. He's a nice 6'4", fast and athletic cornerback. Yeah, and he ran really well from what I remember. I had him as a rising guy, post-combine. Let me see what he ran. I thought it was Darian Porter. He ran a 4.48. Yeah, that dude is blazing fast. And he has the size. I mean, he has that, that longer frame to come into the league and be a guy. And I really don't think he's on a lot of people's draft boards up really high. I think he's probably going to be like at earliest the third round pick. I've even seen Maxwell Harrison out of Kentucky, the dude who ran the fastest 40 at the combine. He ran a 4.28. I've even seen mock drafts from some of the experts where he's fell all the way to the middle of the second round. So listen, if Maxwell Harrison is there for the Giants at 34, I'd be willing to draft him as well. Let me see. Chris P says, how do you feel about targeting Dre Greenlaw in free agency? Not really on my radar. I'd like it. The pricing all depends on free agency, and you're going to overpay in free agency. There's only two guys that are really on my free agent radar, and that was Dennis Gardick, who's coming off a big injury from the Arizona Cardinals, and he's another speed edge rusher I think that could provide great depth behind guys like Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau. And I also want to target Paulson Adebo in the secondary. He played with the Saints for a while, and his rookie contract is just coming to an end. He's probably going to command somewhere between like $5 and $11 million. But he's a guy that I would love to bring in. He's a little bit handsy, had a couple of penalties last time we saw him out. And he's also coming off an injury. But him and Dennis Gardick, I believe those are not ligament injuries. I know for sure with Paulson Adebo, it was not a ligament injury. I think he broke a bone in his leg or something like that. Let's see what else we got, and then we'll get y'all up out of here. Quick 2 hours, man. That just flew by real quick. The Beard says that, yeah, Ollie runs a bit tall too, but I'm drawn to him. Yeah, he had a great day at the Senior Bowl. The other guy that I saw, and I think this was at the Shrine Bowl, was Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. He was the best player on the field at the Shrine Bowl, and he's a guy that didn't get to play any snaps in 2024 because he transferred to where did he transfer? He transferred to Arizona, and then something happened with his eligibility where he couldn't even play the whole year. So he's another guy that in the late, I'm talking day 3 late, that I would consider maybe drafting, bringing him in as a running back. But I do think his age is a bit of a concern, same way Tyrone Tracy's was. Giants fan says, I'm sold on Riley Leonard. Second round, if we can get Aaron Rodgers and Travis Hunter. I don't think Riley Leonard is second round draft capital. You also got to think about it from a contract, standpoint as well. But I look at Riley Leonard as a guy that's probably going to go. Let me look at my quarterbacks here. Jackson Dart will absolutely go before Riley Leonard. I think Kyle McCord is going to go before Riley Leonard because Kyle McCord put up numbers. Like Kyle McCord's numbers, he led the nation in a lot of statistics. He was top 3 in a lot of statistics. But they did air it out, and I love their wide receiver too. They didn't even invite this guy to the combine, Jackson Meeks, who put up over 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns. He's another sleeper wide receiver I think that could be a UDFA. Let me see. Dylan Gabriel is a good quarterback, but it's the height concerns. Plays the game a lot like Tua, is a left-handed quarterback. Do I got Dylan Gabriel over Kyle or Riley Leonard? Oh, that's tough. All right, I'll give you Riley Leonard over Dylan Gabriel. Tyler Show is going to go or Tyler Shuck. I always call him Show because the way his name is spelled. But Tyler Shuck, he's going to go before Riley Leonard simply because of the intangibles and the skill set that he can bring with that big body and whatnot. Curtis Rourke has a little bit of that to him too at 6'5", 223, but the numbers just aren't there. So I got Riley Leonard over Curtis Rourke, over Cam Miller, over Seth Hennigan out of Memphis, over Quinn Ewers, not over Will Howard. Yeah, not over Jalen Milroe either. I would rather draft Jalen Milroe than draft a guy like Riley Leonard. I think Riley Leonard, earliest 4th round, it wouldn't surprise me if he went in the 6th round, to be honest. Oh, the Beard says 5th round here, and he's a fan of Notre Dame. So if anybody knows Riley, you got to take the Beard's word for it for sure. Let me see. Cavell says, what do you think about Brady Cook? I haven't really dove into much of Brady Cook's film, and the combine performance was not all that great. I'll do it this week. I like to leave, what is the saying? No stone unturned. I like to at least operate by that because I got fooled by that 2 times in the 2024 draft class by not looking at all of the Caleb Williams all 22. Because he was the consensus #1 quarterback, I was just like, I'll stay away from that. Caleb's going to be number one. Looked at a couple of games. He's good. I see his skill set. I'm cool with it. But the red flags that were on his tape, I missed and overlooked and didn't do the proper evaluation. Same thing with Bo Nix. So many people wrote Bo Nix off that I looked at like 2 games before the draft. And I was just like, okay, whatever. Like, Bo Nix is a guy that the Giants are not interested in, and he's just not on my radar. So I learned my lesson in 2024, and I'm not going to do the same here entering 2025. But yeah, I'll make sure to check out Brady Cook. That's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up. Let me see. Chris P says Riley Leonard equals Daniel Jones 2.0. I don't think that's accurate. I don't. Riley Leonard is the kind of guy that'll get the ball out of his hands much faster. Like, Giants fans love making a comparison to Daniel Jones. I think if you want to do that, if you want to equal comp, it's straight up, without a doubt, it is absolutely Tyler Shuck. He is, go look at his tape. He is Daniel Jones. Plays the game just like him. Has that similar type of running capability. Great straight line speed. He ran like a 4.6 at the combine, which is actually faster than Daniel Jones, but he has no agility, no lateral movement. Gets out of the pocket, makes the similar kind of mistakes. Big arm. I think that Daniel Jones has, when he wants to, uncork the arm, it's better than a Riley Leonard. I think Riley Leonard wins more with anticipation, playing from the pocket, getting rid of the ball, trying to be decisive, those kind of characteristics. Daniel Jones didn't have those things, I don't think, Chris Peace. But, comps are comps, man. Everybody has different comps. I put out a comp list. People were like, hell no, man. Like, Jackson Dart, he doesn't look like Sam Howell. Bro, they play the game exactly the same to me. But shout out to Chris Peace. Giants fan says, damn respect, though. He didn't like the Riley Leonard takes. But, it's not to say that these guys are not going to succeed. I learned my lesson from other content creators. They go out here and they put out these egregious-ass takes, about quarterbacks like Bo Nix and J.J. McCarthy. These guys are going to be trash and blah, blah, blah and all that. And, they did it with running back. Saquon Barkley's not going to be able to do this. And, he's falling off the fucking cliff and all this shit. I don't say that stuff. Like, y'all know early on during this podcast, I used to make it a point to never call Daniel Jones trash simply because of that. Like, those kind of takes just come back to just bite you. And they're just not, in my opinion, they're lazy ass takes. Like, when you say a guy's trash, bro, he's excelling on a high level playing collegiate football. And they're in their 20s. They're in their early 20s. How can we write them off as trash? I think that's just like not only doing the players a disservice, but if you take yourself seriously as an evaluator, you really shouldn't be calling players trash or any shit like that. I think that shit is goofy. Bookend Tackle says, Peace, all can't wait to see who we end up with under center. Most definitely, man. I cannot wait, man. Have a good night, Bookend. Appreciate you pulling up and rocking out with us for a good, quick 2 hours here on Authentic and the Beard. Stanley says, hey, Authentic, if Luther Burden III is available on top of the second round or at the top of the second round for the Giants, would you draft him? I mean, I'm absolutely going to consider it. Guys like Luther Burden, Emeka Ibuka, if Trey Harris is there at 34, which on a ton of mock drafts, I'm seeing Trey Harris there, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Jaden Higgins, Jalen Noel, what other wide receivers could we think about? Like, if Matthew Golden is there, oh my God, that's the best pure route runner in this class. Jalen Royals will make me start thinking about shit. Those are pretty much all the top of the second wide receivers that I would be like, okay, we got to kind of abandon our D tackle plan here and we got to take one of these weapons, because those guys I just named, guys like Travis Hunter, Tedero McMillan, Luther Burden, Matthew Golden, Emeka Ibuka, Trey Harris, Jaden Higgins, Jalen Noel, all of those guys are going to come in and be wide receiver 2 from day fucking 1. And I just think that makes our offense that much more explosive. And I know a lot of people in the Giants community are not looking at wide receiver as one of their true targets, but for me, yeah, I would absolutely go out there and pull the trigger on one of those wide receivers. And if you haven't had a chance to look at those guys, at least go look at their highlights. I mean, they do damage, man. Like, Jaden Higgins is looking like Mike Evans out there. Oh, man, there was another graphic I wanted to share with you guys, too. Let me see if I can't get it. Fuck it. Let's do it. Let's see here. Let me upload an asset here real quickly, because Todd McShay brought up a fantastic point on his podcast about wide receivers and their NFL quarterback rating when being targeted, like what the quarterback rating is when you target these particular wide receivers. And let me see if I got this graphic here. Mhm. Yeah, we got to share this one right here. This was a really good graphic that translated to the NFL. Now, take a look at this real quick. These are wide receiver, the rating statistic, which is what a quarterback's rating is when throwing them the ball. And it's a little small on my screen. Let me make this large here. So, Todd McShay brought up a fantastic point. He said, if you look at all the guys that led the nation last year entering the draft in quarterback rating or wide receiver rating in this particular comparison, he said, look at the 4 guys at the top of this list that their rating is above 120. All of those guys hit the ground running in the NFL and had major success from day one. Brian Thomas Jr., Ladd McConkey, who I was sleeping on. If you paid attention to what we were talking about draft-wise last year, I was absolutely sleeping on Ladd McConkey. Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors. Compare that to what we got here in the 2025 draft class, and you look at the guys here that are at least hovering right around 120 or above. It's Xavier Restrepo at the bottom of that list, Matthew Golden, Emeka Ibuka, damn, that one got me, Trey Harris, and Travis Hunter. A lot of people are saying that Travis Hunter is a better wide receiver than he is a cornerback, and looking at the tape, I kind of tend to agree just a little bit there. But keep that all in mind here, and there are some guys here that are a little bit lower down the list in the 110s. Romo Dunze didn't have a bad year. He had a pretty decent year. Keon Coleman had a decent year. Very limited targets, very limited productivity, but a good year nonetheless. A.D. Mitchell kind of struggled, but I put a lot of his struggles on the quarterback position. And Jalen Polk, kind of struggled a little bit this year as well. And the New England Patriots were just a big shit show throughout most of the year. So something to keep in mind. I expect all those guys above 120. Matthew Golden, Emeka Ibuka, Trey Harris, and Travis Hunter. If Travis Hunter does play on the offensive side of the ball, I expect all those dudes to be able to hit the ground running and at least be a wide receiver 2 from day one. And I think guys like Jalen Noel, Jack Besh out of TCU, man, he put on a show at the Combine and at the Senior Bowl. And just a great story. So I'm looking forward to following a lot of those guys' careers. And Tedero McMillan, in my opinion, is the best wide receiver in this entire draft, to be honest. Let's tap in with the chat just for a little bit here, and then I'll get y'all up out of here, man. We're at the 2-hour mark. It's been a vibe, and I did a Bleacher Report show for like an hour and a half. I was like, man, it's time to go back and just tap in with everybody over there on YouTube. It's been way too long, and some of these opinions now are getting dated. So I'm going to try to make it a point to pull up here and rock out with y'all at least once a week. Let me see what else you guys got here. Okay, so we were about right here. We did Luther Burden for Stanley. Shout out to Stanley, real active in the chat here today. Bookend Tackle said DJ's problem is he wouldn't throw the ball before wide receivers were coming out to break. He had to see it open. And that'd be the problem with a lot of NFL quarterbacks. Like, if you can't play with anticipation, then you better have a rocket arm to be able to, see it late but squeeze it into a tight window. And Daniel Jones just didn't like those situations, and that he really struggled with that. And between the ears, Daniel Jones he wasn't the guy. And Chris P says, that's why I said DJ 2.0, not exactly like Daniel, but the next iteration. I'm not mad at that. I don't know if Riley Leonard, though, from a way that he processes and throws the ball from the pocket, does it like Daniel Jones. I think it's a little bit different. Big Giants fan 2 said, facts. Let me see. Bash is in the building. He says, do they sign Aaron Rodgers before the draft? You have to. You have to. Because you need some type of insurance contingency plan going into the draft in case things do not go your way, that you have a viable starter on the roster. If you weren't here, Bash, for the beginning of the stream, I'd say right around like the 30-minute mark. Go back and check around that 30-minute mark. There's a lot of good information about the quarterbacks in free agency and the kind of opinion that I have moving forward and how the New York Giants should approach it. Stanley brought up the defensive tackle, Deion Walker out of Kentucky. He says he is a great, massive nose tackle that easily can collapse the pocket with his size. I do agree, and Deion Walker is one of the biggest players in this entire draft. I forget what his measurements were, but the dude looks like he's like 6'5" on the field. this is what I didn't like about Deion Walker, and I wrote this down during the draft. Oh, and good, it has his measurements here too. I said huge. He's like 6'6", 345 pounds, but here's my problems with his game. He plays way too high, like way too high. His pad level, they're going to have to correct that. And I'm not saying it's something that can't be corrected. And I also think that because of that stature that he has, he's unwilling to just try to penetrate to the backfield. He's the kind of guy that, gets stood up at the line and then starts to designate what is happening in the backfield by moving lateral. Now, some people have a lot of success with that. I look at Deion Walker the same way that I look at Savion Williams in the wide receiver running back department. They are extreme projects coming into the NFL. And Deion Walker he's got to hit the weight room. I don't know if you saw him test at the combine. Bro's upper body is huge, and then his lower body, his legs for a guy that size are pretty much like sticks. And that's really interesting for a guy that's that big. So I'd foresee him, and it would benefit him to hit the weight room in a major way and, try to bulk up the lower half. Like when you look at some of these other D tackles in this class, guys like Alfred Collins and Kenneth Grant, man. Oh, my God, dude. Kenneth Grant. I'm thinking about saying something crazy. I think Kenneth Grant might be the best defensive tackle in this class. I think when all's said and done, it would not surprise me if Kenneth Grant has a better career than his Michigan partner, Mason Graham. I really think that Kenneth Graham has everything you want in a defensive tackle. Like, he looks like Dexter Lawrence, but faster. And also Derek Harmon out of Oregon. I think, like, Derek Harmon, the way that he just destroyed the fucking combine, man. Like, every drill, he looked like an NFL player. 6'5", 310, moving the way that he moved at the combine. He had 45 tackles, 5 sacks in 2024, 2 forced fumbles, 2 pass deflections at the line. He's way too quick to be that large of a human being. I wrote down that he's great at diagnosing the play type. And honestly, I know that, Mason Graham did win on a lot of double teams and a lot of one-on-ones with the way that he can just penetrate the backfield that fast. I don't know, man. Derek Harmon and Kenneth Grant, these two guys, I think they have the potential to be the best defensive tackles in this class. I'm a big fan of Landon Jackson, who tested well at the edge rusher position coming out of Arkansas. He had 6.5 sacks in back-to-back seasons. He's 6'6". I forget the 40 time. I think I might have a 40 time here somewhere. What did Landon Jackson run? No, I don't got his time in front of me. But he ran something pretty fast to be that big. He's another guy that I would definitely keep my eyes on in the later rounds. But there's so much talent on the defensive line, y'all. It's absolutely ridiculous. And Kenneth Grant's a guy that I think he's going to go top 15, top 18-ish, maybe top 20 the latest. But, like, if he were to fall to the second round, I don't care who's on the board. You go draft Kenneth Grant. You run that damn card up. He's going to be a straight-up dog. No Mets, no Nets, no Jets in the building. We're about to round this stream out. No Mets. I encourage you to go back and check it out. We said a lot about the quarterback situation with the New York Giants, how we should approach free agency. We talked about Justin Fields, man. I went over Justin Fields' last 17 games as a starter, and the numbers would really surprise you. And when you look at it from a value standpoint, that this guy's coming in at around $10 million AAV is what over the cap values him at going into 2025. Take a look at these numbers over the last 17 starts for Justin Fields. These are good numbers, man. And this was with just 7 interceptions. Granted, we know Justin Fields, his processing needs work and all that stuff, but them numbers looking really good. And I compared them to Jalen Hurts, not to say that Justin Fields is, even in the same ballpark of a quarterback as Jalen Hurts, but look at that. Look at those numbers in comparison to these numbers. I think it's a discussion to be had that, when you have the proper surroundings around you, like Jalen Hurts has had, a guy that a lot of people wrote off is seeing a lot of success in this league. And Jalen Hurts is coming off a Super Bowl victory, because of a lot that has to do with having the right pieces around him, but also his team not giving up on him. So I definitely encourage you to go back, Check out that portion of the stream. We definitely talked a good bit about the quarterbacks. I appreciate you pulling up during the live chat and rocking out with us. Sarah says, since we can't get Dexter Lawrence, I hope my team drafts Kenneth Grant. That would be my dream. He is literally Dexter Lawrence, whatever you want to call it. I wouldn't even say light because that would be a disrespect. It'd be a shot at Kenneth Grant. But dude is an absolute dog. I mean, he's chasing down running backs. He's just a big, massive human being with a lot of speed. He's one of my favorite D tackles in this class. No Met says it's crazy the chat is still talking about Daniel Jones. Yeah, we were just making some comparisons and whatnot, and just thinking about right surroundings and whatnot. I think the whole chat is over the Daniel Jones experiment and whatnot. And the Beard says he loves Xavier Restrepo. I do too, man. He didn't test great. 40 time is something that is to be desired, and he's a smaller guy. And, I think he's going to fall. I think Xavier Restrepo is going to fall to like the third round at least. If he's there in the fourth round, like I've seen on some of these mocks, yeah, man, run the card up. Definitely run the card up. But that's going to do it for me, y'all. Shout out Jameson back in the building. I see y'all. No Mets. Enjoy that rewind, man. This was a really cool stream catching up with everybody over here on YouTube. And like I told them, I'm gonna be back here at least once a week, man. It's a lot, y'all. Like the Bleacher Report stuff is taking up a ton of time, and preparing for the shows on back-to-back days where they're giving me the liberty to create the content the way that I want and putting a lot more on my plate. And I'm very thankful that they did that. Bleacher Report is very lucrative. It's very lucrative. And I'm definitely fortunate to be able to be getting paid talking football. That shit is still crazy. And I still thank you guys a lot for that. You guys helped us build that foundation over here that is truly making this football stuff like I can't say full-time, but it's every day for sure. It's definitely every day. So I thank y'all for that. And y'all support from when we were starting these streams from back in the day, with just two people in the live chat and whatnot, and me and the Beard just up here with Scotty Booms talking ball. That was really the foundation that really showed me that there's a lane for me to be able to talk sports and talk football in particular. And I've since day one in 2019 to where we are at now, like, dude, like in 2019, I was not looking at all 22 on any college prospects, let alone on any NFL quarterbacks for that matter. And now we have the access to be able to, get this kind of access to see all 22. And even on college, I got a ton of it. I got the Beard. You got to hit me up, bro. I got a ton of college 22, bro, like a ton of it to share with you. And a lot of it is clipped up so that you don't even got to go through it play by play. It's literally, divvied up how we've been doing on the channel. But I say all that to say thank y'all, man. I appreciate everything that y'all have done for this channel. Those of y'all that continue to support this channel, popping up, just, being a part of the discussions, the people who, send in the super chats religiously on this channel, man. We cannot thank y'all enough, man. And I think I owe it to y'all to not neglect this channel at all. I know it was just like, it's been like, a month and maybe a month actually, because the Super Bowl was just here just a little while ago and we were doing the preview for that show. But y'all deserve this draft content. So I'm going to be trying to put out little short, small content that's just 10 minutes, 15 minutes, pre-recorded videos, while also trying to tap in with y'all at least, once a week and hopefully more than that. I'm going to try to make it a point that when I'm done doing some of those Bleacher Report streams to just take the same concept and pull up over here on YouTube and kind of just reiterate some of those concepts and just, have a different discussion with different people about it. So salute to all of y'all, man. No Mets, no Net says, Authentic, I heard you on the Daniel Jeremiah call. Shout out to you and the Beard. Yeah, man, with everything that's happening with Bleacher Report and all that, these opportunities are, they're just literally falling into my lap. And that was one that Daniel Jeremiah does once a year with all of the NFL media. It was interesting to see some of the beat reporters from the New York Giants there as well. Ryan Dunleavy was there. And, I'm learning on the ropes, like, they have a system where you raise your hand to ask the questions and whatnot. And I saw all these people raising their hand when I got up in there. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And I didn't realize that was how they were doing the hierarchy of the beat reporters and how they would get their questions. So I stayed throughout the entire stream. It was a 3-hour stream. And there are other little tidbits from that stream that I will be uploading on the channel. It was very, it was just a complete pleasure to be able to go over there and talk ball face-to-face with Daniel Jeremiah and have him answer questions directly. And for those of y'all that didn't get a chance to see that, it is on the YouTube channel. Check it out, along with the latest interview from Joe Shane and Mike Borgonzi, the Tennessee Titans general manager as well. But I'm going to continue to try to bring those opportunities that we are receiving and share them with you guys over here on YouTube as well. And with the stuff that's happening with Bleacher Report, there's just so many opportunities that are out there right now. It reminds me, I should post another one. PFF's Trevor Sakima, me and him had a bit of a brief conversation too about how the New York Giants should approach the draft. And the topic was 3 things the New York Giants need to do to nail the 2025 NFL draft. So I'll make sure to get that clipped up. I shared it on Twitter, but I'll bring it here to YouTube as well and share that with y'all as well. Let me see what else we got. No Mets says, shout out to you and the Beard. Shout out to you, No Mets, No Nets, No Jets. Shout out to everybody here still. The Beard said, it's wild to think about. Yeah, it really is, bro. Like, I remember when, like, the Beard was like, yo, I would have to go to the Beard and be like, yo, who the college dudes coming out? Like, and now it's like we can share those conversations. I can't wait to bring the Beard up here and start talking about draft stuff with the Washington Commanders and with the New York Giants. I know the baby's on the way. I ain't going to try to, get in the way of that right now with the Beard, but definitely. And he said he's, you know how happy I am hearing Authentic Talk College. Yeah, bro. Yeah, that, we've come a long way because back in the day, if you weren't like a superstar in college, I wasn't talking about college ball at all, bro, like at all. Shout out to B-Rog, man. A lot of love for you too as well. We still got to link up, man. And like, I'm telling you right now, it's been a very treacherous last couple of months because I'm just getting adjusted to this schedule of having to create content on the fly every day. It's almost having me get into a bit of a journalistic bag, where you have to come up with new stories and make it interesting and engaging for everyone. And that's what I've been trying to do over at Bleacher Report. We're going to bring that back over here to YouTube. But shout out to all of y'all that spent these 2 hours with us, man. Definitely appreciate that. That goes a long way. And all the support y'all show for me and the Beard over here on this YouTube channel. So we owe that to y'all. But y'all know how we end every stream over here. I was about to say on Bleacher Report because I've been saying that for so long on Bleacher Report. But over here on YouTube and on Bleacher Report, keep living those dreams, y'all. Keep raising that bar. Keep living those dreams because a life without dreams is a life in black and white. Shout out to the podcast GOAT Combat Jack, y'all. And that's a wrap. We will pull up sometime. I'll try to give y'all a little bit more notice next time we go live because today was just like, finish the Bleacher Report. We'll jump over there and go rock out with everybody on YouTube. But the Bleacher Report schedule, for those y'all that want to, chime in and pop up over there as well. And they did a revamp on the app that is not getting raving reviews. People are hating it right now. But if you want to join the Bleacher Report discussions, download the app. And I'll be over there on Bleacher Report talking ball Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays in the offseason every day at 6 p.m. During free agency on Monday, on the 10th, we're doing a joint collaboration stream with a bunch of other content creators in the NFC East. And I know that Louis T is going to be one of them. So for the Commanders fans in the chat, if you want to pull up, pop in on that stream that we're going to be doing with Louis T and a few others. I'm hoping that the other guys are going to be like Vach maybe from the Cowboys. I've seen Vach on Bleacher Report. And maybe like a guy like Lord Brunson or something from the Philadelphia Eagles. That would be really dope. But nonetheless, it should be a really good conversation. Again, I appreciate all y'all time, man. I'll catch y'all on the flip side. Y'all enjoy the rest of y'all Tuesday evening. I'm about to go get some grub. Really haven't ate good since breakfast. So we're going to get some grub in the system and then back to the grind, back to the tape, man. Y'all know what it is. Appreciate you guys, man. It's AATB over everything. Had to remind myself of that today. Appreciate y'all time. Y'all be good, man. Have a blessed evening, man. Y'all be good. Peace.